Good morning. We will now convene the October 24th board retreat at 9:48 a.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Belvedere, Benicia, Concord, here. Contra Costa County, here. Corte Madera, Danville, El Cerrito,
Here.
Fairfax, here. Fairfield, Hercules,
Here.
Lafayette, here. Larkspur, County of Marin, here. Martinez, present. Mill Valley,
Here.
Moraga,
Here.
Napa,
Here.
the County of Napa and 4 Napa cities,
Here.
Novato, Oakley,
Here.
Pinole, Pittsburgh, Pleasant Hill, Richmond, Ross, San Anselmo.
Here. Sorry.
Thank you. San Anselmo, San Pablo, San Rafael.
Here.
Thank you. San Ramon, Sausalito, Solano, Tiburon, Vallejo, Walnut Creek. Quorum established.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item is public open time. This is the opportunity for members of the public to comment on anything that is not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public who would like to speak at this time? Your limit is 2 minutes in speaking.
I see no members of the public wishing to speak. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. To start, I'd like to invite each board member to introduce yourself. Please share your name, the community that you represent, how long you've been on the board, and what inspired you to join MCE's mission. In the interest of time, we ask that you keep your introductions to 30 seconds so we can hear from everyone. So I'll go first. Gabe Quinto, I am Vice Chair of Marine Clean Energy. I've been on the board since 2015 as an alternate, and it's great to be here in the city of Pittsburgh.
All right, I'm Ryan Gregory. I represent Napa County, Supervisor of District 2 in Napa County. I represent 4 other cities in Napa, except for Napa, which Beth very capably represents. I joined because when Brad Wagenknecht retired, somebody needed to fill the spot, and it's a very technical very technical group, and I'm a civil engineer, so that my colleagues just said you should do it. But I've been really just fascinated with what the work we do and how great it is. So thank you.
Do I need the mic?
Sure.
I'll put it over here so that we can share it. So good morning. My name is Maika Llorens Gulari. I've been a board of directors for 4 years. I joined, I think, January of 2021 as I got elected. I'm from San Rafael, the largest city in Marin County, and I represent District 1, which includes the most underserved community in Marin County. And the reason I joined is because I feel that there's no choice. I mean, we need to have like renewable clean energy, and especially for my community in the canal to see how we can support that effort. So thank you.
And folks, we've been informed there is a room mic in the middle of the room, so it's okay. I know as we get down there, there's not a mic, but that's okay. You can just speak up and we should be able to hear.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura Nakamura from the largest city in Contra Costa County, Concord. I have been on the board for 2 years, and I was inspired and encouraged to join the board due to Director Bursan and his understanding of my values for sustainability and our climate. And he's here as well with me today.
Hi, I'm John Joya. I represent the west part of Contra Costa County on the Board of Supervisors. Those Marin folks probably drove through my district on the way here today. I've been on, I forgot how many years, for a few years, and I got on inspired because of my role on other clean energy issues. At the time, I was serving on the California Air Resources Board. I serve on the Air Quality Management District Board and spent time in Contra Costa on clean energy issues.
Hi, I'm Barbara Kohler. I'm the current mayor of Fairfax. I've been on the board 10 years, and prior to that, I was the alternate for 1 year. I've done a lot of work on climate change for my work, cleaned up hazardous waste sites. So it was really a nice fit when Larry Bragman decided to move on to bigger and better things. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dion Bailey, current Vice Mayor of the City of Hercules. Sorry, Dion Bailey, current Vice Mayor of City of Hercules. I joined in June, I think it was. So just a short period of time. Hercules is going to be signing up soon. We should be doing that, I think, in the coming months. So looking forward to that. I joined because I thought our residents should have clean energy choices.
Hello, my name is Gina Dawson. I'm the current mayor of the City of Lafayette, and I've been on the board the 4 years that I've been serving on council. And my inspiration was previous council member Mike Anderson, who served on the board here, was an inspiration to me. And I have sustainable and climate action values, and he said, you have to be on this board. They're a citing group, and he was not wrong. So I'm very proud to be on this board. And John McCormick is our alternate. He's been serving as alternate for the past year, so I appreciate his shared values as well, serving on the board.
My name's Brianne Zorn. I'm the mayor of Martinez. I have been on this board since 2020 or 2021 when the former mayor appointed me. The city of Martinez really values sustainability, and so I think we were one of the early joiners into MCE. And we made City Hall go deep green just a couple of years ago, and I'm always interested in more ways that we can make our city better.
Hi, I'm Matthew Salter. I probably the newest member of the board, joined in April, and I heard the food was really good at all the board meetings, so that's why I joined. But in seriousness, we obviously all are here because we care about climate change and improving the lives of all of our residents and finding a way to get through the crisis that we're seeing. So happy to be here and look forward to working with all of you.
Good morning, everyone. Max Perret, Mill Valley City Council. I've been on the board for 2 years now and chaired the executive committee in the last year. And I really wanted to join this board to help solve the climate crisis, as we've seen with all of the hurricanes. And luckily, we haven't had any smoke in the air this year, but have had, of course, devastating wildfires and floods in the Bay Area. We're in a climate crisis, and MCE is a big part of solving it.
Carrie Hillis, I'm from the beautiful town of Moraga, home to St. Mary's College, which has an awesome sports program, including a Major League Soccer team, or it's like the farm team for the San Jose Earthquakes called the Town FC. Really like to see you all come in, appreciate some of the things that we got going on in our lovely little town. I've been on the board since 2022. I'm doing it, as some of you have heard me say in the past, is, as I tell my kids, it's daddy's trying to take the dirt out of the air.
And I'm Beth Painter. I'm a council member from the city of Napa. I joined the board in 2021. I was elected to council in 2020 and was very interested and had followed MCE. And when I found out, with no disrespect to Napa County, but that the county had all the votes for every city and the county, I thought, well, this is something I want to learn about. This is something I want to be a part of. This is something that brings achievable and real results to our communities, right? And so I'm just really pleased to be here to be able to not only learn from MCE, but bring those tools back to our community.
Good morning, my name is Aaron Meadows. I'm with the City of Oakley. I've been here 4 years when I replaced the outgoing council member.
Hi, Katie Rice. I am the Marin County Board of Supervisors representative on MCE. I officially became a director, I think in 2020, I was an alternate before that. I've been tracking on MCE since before it actually became MCE, when it was in discussion as Marin County looked at taking advantage of what AB 117, right? Authorized in terms of establishing a community choice aggregator, and worked for the supervisor who actually championed that investigation and ultimately brought seed money from the Air District to do all the initial research. So when Dawn was our sustainability staff at the County of Marin. So long story short, I have tracked on MCE since before it began, since it was just an idea, and was really glad to have the opportunity to represent our county, join the board in 2020, and primarily around just really ensuring and continuing to give whatever the county can towards ensuring MCE continues to fulfill its mission and broaden its scope and influence here in the Bay Area.
And I'm Alexis Hyman. I'm from San Anselmo. I've been on the board for about 4 years, 2 as an alternate and 2 as the primary. I'm a climate person, and I think one of the things that really excites me at MCE is its role in really scaling renewable energy and deployment of renewable resources. And then I think on the flip side, one of the things that I spend a lot of time thinking about is as renewables scale and are really a success story, increasingly, how do we make sure that community values and are really at the center of what that scaling looks like. So.
Great. I know we have some alternates here, and if you can please stand and introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, though.
Eddie Bersan, also from the greatest city in Contra Costa. I've been on here since whenever Concord joined. Part of the reason is I pushed for MCE to be in the city, so I'm just sort of like following up on my commitment. And I'm also attracted to power.
My name is John McCormick, alternate for the city of Lafayette. I certainly believe in the vision and the values that the MCE provides. I've only been on since January when I was appointed as a replacement for Teresa Geringer, and so I'm looking forward to learning a lot, and every meeting I have with you guys, I'm more and more impressed. I'm here because Gina Verdosa, much like she was inspired by a former mayor, she appointed me, and I'm inspired by her pick, so I'm excited to learn more and more.
Okay, anybody else?
Hi, I'm the late Cindy Darling. Sorry for not being here earlier. I've been on MCE's board since 2020 when I was elected in Walnut Creek, but I'm not new to the issue because I was actually with the State Department of Water Resources during the energy crisis when all of a sudden DWR had to buy power for the state of California. And I got to see up close and personal how incredibly dysfunctional that was. And so I have a long appreciation for the challenges here. And I'm glad that we're doing something that makes more sense.
Wonderful. Would it be possible to have our staff and our group over here introduce themselves? It's great to see everybody here in person.
Jessica Brooks, I'm the board president.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamie Tuckey. I'm MCE's Chief Customer Officer. I work mostly with all of our public and customer-facing departments, and I've been working on forming MCE since before 2010. I originally was at the County of Marin with Dawn.
I'm Dawn, CEO, and was around for a lot of the early battles, which we're going to talk about shortly. Really excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Vicky Visarchin. I'm the CEO of MCE, and my time goes a little bit back to the creation of the ISO, the markets, and Director Darling's story about DWR's intervention. I was in one of those rooms.
And you survived.
So really proud to be at MCE and a mega challenge vision and mission statement that drives us and try to accomplish that. Thank you.
Good
morning, everyone. I'm Catalina Murphy, General Counsel. I've been with MCE for 8.5 years, and I've seen most of you at all the board and committee meetings that I attend.
Wonderful. Next, we'll go to MCE vision, mission, and agency priorities, and this is a discussion. The next item is that, and Don Weiss, please get us started.
All right. I want to start off by saying I am so inspired to be here, and I'm so glad we just did that round the table with the board members because I just feel so lucky to be able to work with all of you on this very difficult and important work. And I feel like we've already gotten a lot out of the day, just getting to remember why we're all here. You know, my passion for this work grew out of a real interest in working on environmental and sustainability issues many years ago, working on environmental justice issues in LA, and then coming up here to Northern California to see what could be done around the climate crisis. Before I jump into our mission, vision, and values, I also want to thank all of the MCE staff that are here. I'm really excited for them to get to learn from all of you why you're here, what you're doing every day in your communities. I really, this is such a team effort. It always has been. We could not be doing the great work we're doing without these amazing board members and the amazing staff that are here. So thank you to all of you for being here today. It's such a team effort. So I'm going to kick us off here, and to make the best use of the really important, valuable time we have here today together, I'm going to go through this material pretty quickly because it's all been provided in advance. I'm going to move through the slides quickly to make room for questions and input from the board members. That's what we're here for today. But I want to start off with the next slide, which is just a reminder about our mission, vision, and values. I think everyone knows that MCE was formed to confront the climate crisis. Back in the early 2000s, at the County of Marin, we were looking for ways to reduce our carbon emissions. And this idea of community choice came along in the legislature back in 2002 that gave us an opportunity to redirect where all the customers in the county were getting their energy from. And this was a big opportunity to really, at the flip of a switch, make a very marked change in our carbon emissions. So we really took hold of it and spent a lot of time trying to make it happen. I'm not going to read all of the things on this slide, but I want to especially call out the values section of this slide because we're going to talk a lot about values today. And in all of the presentations and the discussions that we're having, I want us to keep going back to the values. What are we doing as an agency to really live our values? Innovation, equity, accessibility, inclusivity, sustainability, and fiscal responsibility. Those are our core values, and I think a lot of what you'll hear today will show how we're living those. So let's go to the next slide. I just wanted to spend 2 slides talking about MCE's formation. Some of you were here during the early formation. Some of you were a part of the early formation. And even our newest addition to MCE, Hercules, I know that Director Bailey, you were being a little humble when you introduced yourself, but you helped bring the MCE concept to Hercules, and many of you have been involved in those efforts. So many of you know about the backstory of the legislation getting passed that enabled community choice aggregation, but you may not know that it was a really tough battle in Marin County to get the idea of CCA off of the starting lines. It was really sparked by local advocates, and so we really owe a real debt of gratitude to the advocates, the advocacy groups, including Sierra Club, lots of local Sustainable San Rafael, Sustainable North Bay, that helped spark the idea of community choice and push for it at all of the city council meetings where it was being deliberated. It was really shepherded by a handful of local electeds alongside local government staff that really wanted to see it happen. The city managers were definitely the hardest sell because they were looking at the numbers. But we started off with, hiring professionals in the field, consultants to do feasibility studies. We did a lot of peer reviews of feasibility studies, and everything came back looking like we could address the climate by getting twice as much renewable energy into our mix at the same price. That was really the main thing we were looking for. All the studies kept coming back saying, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it. None of the studies told us how hard it was going to be politically. And luckily, I was born as an optimist and didn't expect it to be quite as hard as it was. So getting through each day at a time seemed possible, and that's really how we moved forward. But it was very difficult. We were supported by grants. We had very limited funds to get going, and that's why Jamie, when she started out, was an intern. We were not bringing in a lot of funds for the first couple of years, and Jamie and I were working on a shoestring budget with very limited funds from the local governments. We were also fought very hard by PG&E, and I don't say that because I want to disparage PG&E. There's a lot of great folks that work there. We have a lot of good working partnerships with them now, but their leadership was, I think, very worried about what might happen as the CCA movement looked like it might be taking hold. They spent $46 million on a ballot initiative in 2010 to stop CCAs. When that ballot initiative landed on the ballot, the lawyers that were helping us said, hey, this is a gray area. We don't know if you'll be able to launch if this ballot measure passes. So we had to accelerate our launch date to get ahead of that ballot initiative. We had to find funding to buy power and get ready, notice customers, follow all the rules, get the word out. And while we were doing that, PG&E launched a phone banking campaign where they called everyone in the county, telling folks that if you don't opt out, the lights might not stay on in the winter. They said anything they wanted to say under the header of free speech. They also said, this new agency, they're going to be providing coal. It's going to be more expensive. And we were hemorrhaging customers before we even launched in 2010. Fortunately, that ballot initiative narrowly failed. We were able to launch service, and in less than a year, we were able to pay back all of the initial loans that had been given to us. And we were able to go from the doubling of renewable energy, which at that time was going from PG&E's 13% renewable to our 26% renewable. Well, by the end of the first year, we were able to bump that up to 50% renewable while keeping prices the same as PG&E. And so a lot of the efforts that we had to go through made a big impact on the community. Advocacy support was really key to overcoming the challenges, and we can jump to the next slide here as I finish up with the backstory. But I would say that fast forwarding to today, the challenges that we have shifted, and I'm not here to say that it's easy street now. We have different challenges. Things have evolved. The challenges that we face now are primarily on the regulatory playing field. We continue to face market volatility and market challenges. And one of the biggest challenges that we're facing this year and going into next year is scope creep by our regulatory bodies. When we launched, and I'm going to move over here because I feel like I can't see the people on this side. When we launched back in 2010, it was a bit of a Wild West scenario where the CPUC really didn't know what we were going to do. We kind of had a halo effect when we walked in there because they thought, this is this cute little local government, doing some green energy stuff. This sounds like a really good idea. But as we've grown, there's been more of a concern that the CPUC wants to control the things that we're doing, even though we have our own very capable elected board governing our day-to-day actions. So we're going to talk about that today. Next slide. This is just a quick timeline of how we grew from our launch in 2010, adding communities in Contra Costa County, and then Napa, and then Solano. And I won't dwell on this, but very exciting to see the growth and the partnerships that we have now across our 4-county footprint. And then the next slide is just to show you the breakdown in each of our counties. And let's go to the next slide, which shows you the statewide spread of this good idea. So I think you all know that MCE was the first CCA in the state to form. It turned out that it was a great idea, so a lot of local governments wanted to do the same thing. One of my favorite parts about working in local government, and I've been in local government almost my whole career, except for a little bit of nonprofit sector work before that, I love how we collaborate. I love how we share everything. We can reach out to our neighbor cities and towns and say, hey, this worked really well. Oh, this didn't work at all. Please, you don't want to do that. Here's our marketing material. We'll just share it with you. And so we did a lot of that after we launched. We shared everything with any local government that was interested in CCA. And as you can see, it really took hold. There are now 25 operational CCAs across the state, serving about 1 out of every 4 energy customers in the whole state is now served by a CCA. So it's a huge sea change, really, for the state. And over 200 communities. And that's really exciting, but just to think about the numbers, but what it means is the impact on the climate is really significant because all of these CCAs have joined the movement with an eye towards climate change. And that isn't necessarily, that wasn't a requirement of the initial legislation. In fact, there was a CCA effort before we launched that was tied to building a gas plant in the Central Valley to create more reliability. They were having a lot of outages there. That effort failed for a number of reasons we can talk about later if anyone's interested. But all of the CCAs that have formed since MCE have a 100% renewable option and have made a dramatic impact on the amount of renewables available in their community. So let's go to the next slide. So the reason that I wanted to put this slide in here is, there are now 25 CCAs with boards of elected officials up and down the state. And in chatting with our board chair recently, she asked me to talk a little bit about what is the assignment for the board. Why are we all here? Why are you all here? We know that board members are really busy with a lot of commitments. You all are not just part of the MCE board, you sit on your own city councils or county board of supervisors, and you're doing a lot of other work in the community, and many of you have day jobs. So the good news is that we have a really strong staff. We have over 100 staff members now at MCE. It's grown a lot since Jamie and I were working in the back of the county. But these are smart, well-trained experts in the energy field. So we can really rely on our staff for operations. And this allows the board to really focus on the important connections between MCE and our communities. Just to simplify it, I think there are 4 key things that we really encourage the board to lean into. Sharing, spreading the word about our programs, our rebates, inform us about, and our staff about key initiatives and events happening in your communities, especially with an Energy Nexus, so that we can be out there. We like to sponsor events. We like to spread the word. We want customers to know about what MCE is doing. Advise, offer your perspective on community-based policy decisions. We will continue to bring those to you and look for our input wherever we can. And then the last is advocating, being a spokesperson and an advocate for MCE with our legislative leaders, our delegation, our regulatory bodies. I want to do a special shout out to Director Lorenz Gulati and Director Murphy, who both attended the CalCCA event in Washington, D.C. just a week ago. That was amazing to have you all representing MCE so far away. I know several of you have been helping in meetings with our legislative delegation just recently, Director Darling, and I know a few others. And those meetings have such a big impact because it helps our regulatory bodies and our legislative leaders remember that we have an active, informed board that is overseeing what we do and is a connection to the community. So let's go to the next slide. In the executive committee, we've spent some time recently focused on how we can use our time most efficiently and effectively. And so I'll just pause on this briefly, just reminding folks to, read packets in advance where possible, summarizing feedback, allowing space for others. Today, we're going to pause and leave opportunity for lots of folks to comment. Make sure we're making room for everyone in the room, showing respect for others' points of view. We all come here with passion. We all come here with strong beliefs and values, and we need to make sure we're showing respect for each other's point of view. And then the last one, the theme I promised to come back to, is using the lens of MCE values in our discussion and decision making. So, and I'm just realizing I can stop asking someone to move to the, I do need to ask someone. Okay, next slide. All right, so values. I just want to touch on a few examples here. So how are we living our values? I think that for the first one that comes to mind for me in our inclusivity values is our workforce development. We're doing a lot around that. We'll talk about it a bit today. As far as accessibility, we're doing a lot around bilingual communications. Our call center is doing a lot to make things accessible. Our new website refresh is a good example of how we're making things accessible. But be thinking about if there's more we can do on inclusivity and accessibility. On equity, we're going to talk about our virtual power plant and the MCE Cares credit. You'll also notice a lot of the posters around the room are intended to give you information. We knew we wouldn't have time today to get into everything. So if you have a chance to walk around the room, take a look and you'll see more about our VPP over there, our MCE Cares credit, how we're making bills more affordable. Innovation. Our Flex Market program was so darn innovative that the CPUC now requires the IOUs to implement similar programs. Fiscal responsibility. We have the strongest credit ratings of any CCAs. We were the first to get a credit rating. We now have multiple credit ratings. And we've been fiscally strong for our 16 years of existence. And then sustainability. We're a California certified green business, but I would venture to say that what we're doing around the climate is very, very impactful as far as sustainability goes. So today, think about other ways we're living our values, and also, what are some new ways we can further our values? You can not only speak up during the meeting, but we also will be passing around a paper survey form that you can fill out and jot down ideas there too. We'll be definitely looking at those after the meeting. Next slide is really focused on risks. In our executive committee recently, we've spent time talking about risks that drive our decision making. Another way of framing risks, maybe in a less scary way, is driving forces. Like what's happening out there that we can't necessarily control, but we need to be prepared for and react to. In your packet to prepare for this meeting was the May XCOM presentation on addressing risk. And the reason we put that in there was because we knew we wouldn't have time to go through it today, but we wanted you all to be aware of what are those driving forces out there and how are we turning them into opportunities? Because we know that risk equals opportunity. That's what we should be thinking about at this retreat. A few of them are listed here: power supply price volatility, clean supply limitations. We're having a hard time finding as much renewable content as we need. Renewable curtailment. Sometimes the solar is curtailed that we have in our portfolio, and we have to find replacement power for that. Customer and generation grid connection challenges. So we're encouraging everyone to electrify, but then sometimes they aren't able to get that panel upgrade or get connected to the grid in a timely way. Affordability challenges are huge right now, especially when they're compounded with all the other price increases that folks are facing, grocery bills, et cetera. And then, as I mentioned, scope creep by regulatory bodies. That's a big one. So how do we use these driving forces as opportunities? And on the next slide, you'll see a list of 7 goals that are really targeted at turning our risks into opportunities, really using innovation, advancing renewable energy opportunities that are new and that are, things that we haven't incorporated before, really deepening our leadership on energy equity and affordability for the state might help to turn some of these driving forces in our direction. Prioritizing programs that shift load away from 4 to 9 p.m. I know that we probably sound like a broken record on this. We're always talking about it. That's because it's so important, because what we want to be able to do is align our load when people are using energy with our generation. A lot of our generation comes from the sun. So when the sun is going down, that's when we need people to be relying on their batteries or reducing their load, not charging their electric vehicles. So these programs really have a purpose that help us get at that key risk and driving force. Strengthening the grid and the Western energy market. We're going to talk about that later today, because that gives us access to more clean energy at more times of the day. And then attracting and retaining talent at all levels. That's a really important part of being able to achieve all of our goals. So next slide, I'm just going to skip through a few of these briefly. These are some examples of how we're living our values through our goals. This shows the impact we've made on the clean energy front. Our energy product is 100% fossil free, and it has been for a while. Spread the word. We've made it. We're 100% fossil free, 95% greenhouse gas free. And we are 18 years early meeting state goals on that front. So we are really leading the state, and spread the word. We want to make sure everyone knows that. The next slide is focused on energy affordability. We're doing a lot on that. I won't spend more time on this because I think you all know it, but it's here if you need it for reference. The next slide is addressing our supply and demand challenges. As I talked about, shifting that demand away from the evening hours. It helps us save money, helps us keep bills affordable, it helps us rely more on renewable energy and less on the fossil coming from the grid. Next slide is a summary of how our dollars are working to achieve our goals and our mission. We have so many programs. We don't have time to talk about them in detail today, but it's a wide range: energy efficiency, electric vehicles, electrification, equity. We're doing a lot on all fronts. The next slide is a great example of our innovation. The virtual power plant that we have going in Richmond is really cutting edge, and we've been invited to speak at the CAISO Symposium next week about our virtual power plant on a panel with just 3 other people, and no one else has a power plant like this. So it might seem small, but it's cutting edge, and it's a model that we hope to scale up before long. Next slide is local renewable energy projects. We've built 44 megawatts of projects in our footprint. That's a lot. It takes about 60 acres to put in 10 megawatts. So this is a lot of local renewable energy projects, and we thank our community for helping to make that happen. The next slide is an example of the biggest one, the MCE Solar One project that continues to be a cornerstone of what we talk about when we are moving around the state, sharing best practices. And next slide. Power purchasing. So we've been able to do so much by bringing on all of the new resources and making sure that we're adjusting our load to help integrate these resources. Let's go to the next slide. This is an example of a large project that is solar and battery storage. That allows us to absorb that solar energy in the middle of the day and put it on the grid in the evening. So that's a way that we're really living our values through a goal that helps address a key risk in the market, the shortage of renewable supply. Next slide. So I'm going to wrap up with these questions for you. How does MCE live our values? Could it be improved in 2025? How are we turning our risks into opportunities? And are there new ways we should do this in 2025? So I'd love to hear any off the top of the head comments that folks might have right now. We're taking notes, and you're also welcome to write down ideas on the survey page. Does anyone have a thought to chime in?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Don. I'd like to introduce our chair of the Board of Marine Clean Energy, MCE, and that is my longtime colleague and dear friend who we worked together for many, many years, and that's the former mayor of Pittsburgh, Councilmember Chanel Scales Preston.
Thank you, Gabe. I appreciate that. Thank you all, and welcome to wonderful Pittsburgh. I hope you all have been enjoying the beautiful view of our waterfront here, the marina. I'm excited to have you all in my hometown here. And I'm sorry I'm late. I had to work this morning, so I just was able to get out to spend the rest of the day with you all. I'll turn it back over to you, Don, to see if there's any questions with regards to your presentation.
Well, this may not be exactly on point, but I wanted to share something that I brought to Fairfax, which is a local thing that can be done. So last week I brought an incentive program to Fairfax to provide a bill credit working with MCE to get 100 households to sign up to Deep Green. So it was unanimously accepted and approved by our council. I brought a similar incentive back in 2015 when I was then mayor for the first time. And again, we worked with MCE and got more than 100 households to sign up through tabling and other things. And as a result, we are the highest Deep Green signees. I think we're at something like 13.8%, and the average is more around 8.8%. Obviously, not everyone can do this. For us, we're a small city, unlike some of these very large cities sitting here, and we can do it for 100 households, and we're paying for it ourselves. So for 100 households in Fairfax, it's $6,000 for a year to get a bill credit of $5 a month and have folks sign up to Deep Green. We also expect that once you've signed up, you probably won't go back after the year. So, you know, our community, some of our more negative folks were very excited about this. So I think I would challenge all of you to consider it. Obviously, if we all do it, we won't have enough renewable energy, but just think about it. It really sparked things back in 2015, and I thought it was time to do it again. So just think about something like this for your communities.
One of the things that I mentioned at our last board meeting, our last board retreat actually, was given the transmission difficulties we've had with getting our renewable resources from our Central Valley investments, about the idea of investing more in our member communities and investing more in projects. For example, Moraga, we had a year's running debate on getting renewable solar and battery backup on our municipal buildings. Cost was a big issue. It ended up going long enough that we're now in NEM 3 rather than NEM 2, which definitely affects things. But I think there's multiple reasons from a values perspective why those investments should be here in our member agencies versus where I'm sure the land is less expensive in the Central Valley. You have the infrastructure, you're closer to the customers. There's also the perception piece, which is that, I'll just say, when I'm driving through Napa or driving through Contra Costa and I see an MCE sign, that's pretty great marketing for the services that we offer.
So I'll just add to that in terms of opportunities and future opportunities. And maybe Supervisor Gregory can speak to this more, but in Napa, we just recently have a project approved for a pretty significant solar field on top of our Napa Sanitation District ponds. It's solar only, right? It's not battery. So I'm looking at these opportunities to find these local projects and then have MCE partner to say, how do we add battery storage? How do we do better transmission? How do we keep that energy local, right? Because we're producing it locally, which is fantastic. But, you know, the more we can do to try to retain it locally and tell our story better and tell our customers that that's what we're doing, that would be great. And I think there's opportunity there, so moving forward, you know, if we have these projects that we can bring to you or connect with staff, I think there's opportunity there.
You mentioned board roles at the beginning. I think the biggest opportunity we have as representatives here is to go back to our bodies and share what we did at board meetings. And then most of us have a huge platform with our constituents. A lot of the action items are very technical, and we might have a challenge sharing the story of what we did, you know, at the board meeting. What we could do is, you know, give us a cheat sheet, you know, after a couple days after the last board meeting. How would we articulate this really complex, like this last discussion around Beverly with power plant? How do we possibly share that with them? So a little help there, I think, would make it so much easier for us to share the word with our community.
I want to make room for our next presentation, but yeah.
I just wanted to say, building on that idea, something we do in Fairfax is a meeting recap, shortened version of our council meetings. And I think, following on what the director just said, maybe having a meeting recap, short summary of what happened might help us share that information so we are sure that we're saying the right thing, because we all walk away with sometimes different understandings. So think about that, and maybe that's something you can post on the website and we can just pull it off, or you can send it to us.
Wonderful idea, very doable. And Supervisor Joya?
Yeah, I mean, I always think the best way to live our values is to actually do something tangible and real and action. And so I think, and we can mention it later, but I think a high priority for MCE on equity is to really work, and I think Katie knows what I'm about to say with regard to the no-knox rule with regard to water heaters and furnaces. The Air District has done a very historic thing a few years ago. We're the first place in the country to require basically electric heat pump water heaters starting in 2027 and electric furnaces, heat pump furnaces in 2029. We passed this a couple of years ago. We have a working group. We are going to need a lot of assistance with lower income residents to help them. There's a lot of work that's being done to show that you don't necessarily need electric panel upgrades. We actually had a presentation about that for Sustainability Committee at the county. So I think we can play a major role because all of our residents are affected by this new rule. And so I know we've talked about this, but I think that's about equity. It's about making this affordable for lower income and even middle income folks to as this rule gets implemented.
Thank you. Wonderful. Any more burning thoughts? Yeah.
So I have a follow-up around that. Thinking about the multi-units, like where we have like apartments, and I think a lot of the tenants don't have a choice. It's more about the landlords. So I think there is an opportunity. I'm thinking about like maybe the energy credits, but I'm not sure how that will work. And something that's happening right now in these situations is we are looking at increase of rent, and when the city is working so that doesn't happen, but then they are increasing utilities. So I think there is an opportunity and definitely a risk in there for a lot of tenants that they are getting displaced. And so I'm not sure how the MCE role could support that. And then thinking about electrifying building codes at the state level, like we are really trying to pass that, but we are facing that challenge. And I have to say, when I went to the annual conference, that everybody, when they knew that I was coming from MCE, everybody wanted to talk to me and say, how do you do it? How do you do it? And I was shocked to know that only 10 states in the United States are allowed to have CCAs. That's crazy. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, I think you get the last word.
Great. Building off of Supervisor Joya's comments, really applaud the work we did this year on the MCE credit for carers. And I know that this year we put that in the budget revision, given the surplus, and had to put a cap on it. But it'd be great to look at next year if we are thinking about expanding it to have it be automatic to all CARES customers. And as we build towards 2027 with these new regulations from the Air District, right? Giving folks an opportunity to get some bill credit would be great.
Great. Super helpful. These are a lot of really tangible, actionable ideas, so greatly appreciated. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Now moving on to item 5. Next, we'll discuss empowering communities with clean energy initiatives. Public comment will be invited at the end of this item as well. We'll start with item A, grant-funded consumer programs. First, we'll hear from Alice, our VP of Customer Programs.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alice. I have been with MCE for 10 years, and I lead up our customer programs team. I'm really excited to be here this morning with 4 members of my team, and we're going to give updates on some of the grant-funded initiatives that we have going on. Next slide, please. So to start off, I wanted to share that we have close to $180 million coming into MCE currently to support programs. So external funding coming in. This number is wonderful in terms of allowing us to do good work. It also is guaranteed through 2031. And so not only do we have enough money to focus on doing really good work, we have a runway to allow us to focus on long-term goals, really looking at taking on challenging projects and seeing them through to completion. So while we have close to 180 million coming in to support programs, today we're going to be focusing on the 2 that are highlighted in yellow. So our CPUC low-income funds, about $6.5 million supporting a multifamily program, and then what we call our active grants. So about $5.5 million in grants that we've been awarded and are underway, already been kicked off in implementation. We also have over $9 million in what we call post-award grants. So MC has been awarded the funding, but we're not quite at implementation stage yet. We're in some level of contracting or working through the details. So next slide, please. So speaking of those post-award grants, we're not going to go into a lot of detail, but these are the grants that we're currently working through contracting on. We have 4 federal earmarks. And I'm very pleased to say that actually the one that is supporting energy storage, we are ready to go on that. It's kicking off in January. We've received the funds. That's the first federal earmark that we've gotten the funds on. So we're really excited to get going on that. And we have 3 more that we're working through with the Housing and Urban Development Department. And then brand new grant coming in, $5 million from the California Energy Commission to support the expansion of our virtual power plant. Next slide. And so these are the grants that we'll be talking about today. These are our active grants. I'm actually not going to talk through this because you'll hear about all of these in a lot more detail. And I'm going to hand it over to my team members now. They're each going to have a chance to introduce themselves as they come up to the podium. So first we have Grace.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Grace Peralta. I'm a senior program manager at MCE, and it's really exciting to hear that there's interest in multifamily and electrification because that's exactly what I do. I oversee some of our energy efficiency and electrification programs specifically focused on multifamily. And next slide, please. The Low-Income Families and Tenants, or LIFT pilot program, is one of them, one of the programs that I oversaw. And the purpose of this program was to better serve income-qualified multifamily properties within our service area, especially those that were already not taking advantage of other energy efficiency or low-income programs out there. The funding for this program came from the California Public Utilities Commission, specifically their Energy Savings Assistance Funds that is targeted for low-income communities. The program ran from October 2017 through December of 2023, and we were awarded $6.75 million to implement this program. Through LIFT, we treated 36 properties and 1,558 tenant units with a specific focus on deed-restricted affordable housing, environmental social justice communities, and the least affordable regions within our 4 counties. We installed 49 heat pump water heaters and 474 heat pump space heating and cooling systems. And with these upgrades, we were able to generate an annual health and safety benefit of $77,380 for a total of over $4 million in incentives, which means that the majority of our program budget went to upgrade and increase the comfort of the tenant units that we treated. Next slide. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Panera, and I lead our storage efforts. And I'm really excited that the site visit that we're going to be doing later today at the Pittsburgh Unified School District, you're going to be able to see one of our storage projects in action. So this is our Marin Community Foundation. It's a resiliency grant. It's aimed at enhancing energy resiliency and reliability, and it was designed to pair storage and solar for critical facilities within the Marin County. We launched this back and secured the funds back in 2020 as a direct result from the 2019 public safety power shutoffs, which impacted over 260,000 of our customer accounts. We secured $750,000 in grant funds, which I'm really proud and excited to share that all of these funds have been fully subscribed and allocated to 9 different project sites within the Marin County. We've been able to support essential facilities like food banks, academies, schools, and even a senior housing association. Let's see. We had a wide range of battery installations, just really highlighting our the ability to support diverse energy needs. And lastly, I'll share that all of these batteries have been installed paired with new and existing solar. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Joy Massey. I'm a Senior Customer Programs Manager. I oversee our transportation electrification team, several programs and grants that I will highlight now. So the first is Charge Up Contra Costa. Contra Costa Transportation Authority received funding from the California Energy Commission to support the installation of electric vehicle chargers in low-income communities throughout Contra Costa County. As a sub-grantee, MCE is leveraging our existing EV charging rebate program with this Charge Up Contra Costa rebate and offering eligible customers up to $5,000 for the installation of chargers in disadvantaged communities. So really increasing our rebate amount by about $2,000 for those customers. We've completed a marketing campaign in which we've been able to keep a pretty active pipeline of charging ports, 247, and that number is growing with all of these numbers on the screen, actually. And to date, we've installed about 39, or our partners rather have installed about 39 ports to support that. We have recently completed a contract amendment to really extend the timeline that it takes to do this work. Installing chargers, which I'll talk about for the next few minutes, there's sometimes a lot of challenges with that, right? And making sure our customers have sufficient time and resources to do so. We have also reduced in that contract amendment the total number of ports that we plan to install and really focusing that budget exclusively on level 2 charging. And all of those changes really are speaking to some of our customers' needs. Next up is Charged by Public Power. I will say charged and charging a lot in these presentations. So with $1 million of funding from the Department of Energy, Charged by Public Power is really an opportunity to advance clean mobility in historically underserved communities. By working at the community level and with our communities, we are not only installing electric vehicle chargers, but also in the future, we'll be supporting some community-identified clean mobility solutions like potential community car share or e-bikes, and really tailoring those solutions to speak to the unique needs of the 9 priority communities that are highlighted on the slide. To date, we have completed, or we now have a dedicated webpage that I extremely encourage everyone to check out. We also have marketing materials and a toolkit that has really advanced participation in this project, particularly for a community transportation survey that we now have launched and a focus group. And I just want to highlight in terms of the survey, the goal is really first to understand community assets. Oftentimes we're asking communities what's working or what's not working, and we're not asking them to think about what are the best assets of your community as they exist right now, and to really dream about the future of electric transportation. And so that survey does that. It also tries to understand some of the barriers that our communities are facing as they exist in the moment. And we have received an overwhelming response. That number actually is at about 600 surveys to date from those 9 priority communities, where we were only expecting to receive about 100. So that is just huge kudos to our engagement team, and also our Community Electric Transportation Council, which is an advisory group of government officials and our community partners that are really supporting in the overall program design and community outreach. And lastly is a project that we have in which we are really ensuring the equitable transition of electric vehicle chargers and multifamily housing sites. With funding from the Marin Community Foundation, paired with funding from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District and our existing EV charging program, we are offering, one could say turnkey or just full serviced installation for EV chargers, working across or with rather 3 different affordable housing developers and supporting them in the installation of those grants. So that includes things like tenant engagement, making sure tenants are aware of the new technology that could be installed, supporting property managers in the installation, operation, and maintenance of chargers, as well as completing any electrical upgrades that might be required for the installation of chargers and the deployment of chargers. And I will just highlight, although this program has received or has completed a lot of items, we are experiencing some timeline delays, and that is just due to some of the competing priorities of our partners, but really working to move this work forward. And I will just give a quick shout out to Grace, who has transitioned as the project manager for this work and really is leveraging her multifamily housing expertise.
Good morning, everyone. Michelle Nachasaki, Senior Customer Programs Manager. I lead our single family work, which is mainly our home energy savings program, which happens to be the backbone of our Richmond Rising effort, which I'm going to speak about today. Richmond Rising is a partnered effort. MCE is partnered in coordination with Grid Alternatives and the City of Richmond on this program. This program is a subset of the larger Richmond Transformative Climate Communities grant that they were awarded, and is essentially a comprehensive offering that provides home upgrades and repairs, full energy efficiency, electrification installations, and solar installs on low-income housing in a targeted area in the city of Richmond. The targeted area includes the neighborhoods of Coronado, Santa Fe, and the Iron Triangle. MCE was awarded just over $3.1 million for our side of the work, which focuses on the home repairs, the energy efficiency, and the electrification installs. And we are just wrapping up, or we just wrapped up, 1 full year of implementation. So these numbers are actually a couple weeks out. As of last week, we were at 9 completed projects. That has probably already gone up from that number. That said, this being our first year of implementation was definitely a learning curve year. The goals for this project are to serve 250 homes over the course of 5 years. 216 of those 250 homes must be served in coordination with MCE and Grid Alternatives. What we realized is that the housing stock in this specific area was a lot more challenging than both MCE and Grid Alternatives has actually seen in the field to date. So, even compared to our other projects within the larger city of Richmond, this specific area, the housing stock is very old. The amount of home repairs needed to complete the energy efficiency, electrification, or solar were way more than any of us realized, including the city of Richmond at the time. We ran into a bit of a snag when the funder for this project, Strategic Growth Council, implemented a repair cap on all projects, which was a $3,000 repair cap, and that was on the entire project. So that included, the home upgrades and, say, roof repairs for solar, which honestly just became impossible. So a lot of our efforts this year were on data collection, reporting back to the city, reporting back to the Strategic Growth Council as our funder, and kind of laying out the landscape in terms of, in order to do this project, this is what we need. So huge success. At the end of August, they passed an amendment, the Strategic Growth Council did, that allowed us to remove that cap There's now an average cap, but it helps us, and it helps us move projects along. And so looking forward to the next 4 years and meeting those goals on this project. Thank you.
Next slide, please. All right, and lastly, we have our virtual power plant. So I know we've discussed this at board meetings in the past. This effort has started as a small pilot in Richmond, and we have plans to grow it to the whole service area once we sort of prove the concept here. The idea is to help our customers get resources that can be that can help them, but also can be deployed to support our power procurement needs and support the grid. MCE will deploy those resources, capture the value, and share it back with our customers, sharing that wealth with disadvantaged communities, businesses, supporting the community, and helping us achieve our goals. So this grant, this is a close to $5 million grant from the California Energy Commission. Within the city of Richmond, 33 homes have received one or more controllable devices, with 4 fully refurbished homes. I know some folks had a chance to tour one recently. 2 installations at non-residential properties, and 15 different technologies integrated into a DERMS platform, with 5 more integrations underway. And so that last point is also very exciting, because once we integrate these technologies, we have a whole range of customer programs that are installing those devices, and really look forward to that all working together in the future to build out the capabilities. So that's the last grant that we wanted to go over, and I just wanted to close out our presentation by inviting your comments and feedback on how these grants can help support your communities in achieving their goals. What other ideas do you have for us? Where should we be looking to do work in the future? So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Alice. You and your team are doing an awesome job and a lot of hard work with getting all those grants. So thank you for what you're doing for our communities. Are there any questions for Alice and her team before we move over to the next presentation? Yes.
Yeah,
Director Rice.
Really, all the programs are super interesting, and what I gather is that we learn a lot in the implementation of them. And so I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how we use those learnings and actually share them with partners and maximize actually this heavy upfront investment, so that, because ultimately this is looking at how do you scale these things to really make even a broader impact. And I'm thinking about everything from, on Richmond, or which one, what we learned about housing stock, and the needs were so much greater than anticipated. And I'm guessing there's a portfolio of different kinds of housing stock in every community. And frankly, there's probably now, it's fairly obvious there's a need for analysis on what's the sort of menu of treatments that are going to be needed, and what are the estimated costs. But anyway, so sharing information and really maximizing what we're learning to share with partners, and towards really gaining the impact in terms of electrification that needs to happen over time.
Yeah, that's a great point and question, that every time we embark on one of these grants, we learn a lot and are more equipped the next time to plan, budget appropriately for the effort. So one thing that I want to share as an opportunity is, in each of your communities, if you have, so using this Richmond grant as an example, the city of Richmond went after this grant. It had more components than just the energy component, but I really want to offer up MCE's team as a service to all of your communities, because we would love to be pulled in as your communities are going after grants or thinking about implementing projects. Our team now has experience doing this work in different areas. We have partners that have been with us for 10 plus years doing this work. And so we can be brought in as a component of those projects, and then share all of those learnings and help with the planning. So we love to be presented with those opportunities as much as possible. I'd love to come in front of you all and share our lessons learned as well. And just, as an agency, we're often going after grants across our whole service area, or looking at, how can we equitably treat our whole service area.
but we also can come in more targeted projects and kind of bring our implementation team that has been doing this work and support those grants. So I would love to do more of that work with individual communities across our service area.
So can I go one follow-up?
Yeah.
So these grants, except for maybe the internal ones like MCF grant, but you're getting grant monies that are coming from state and federal agencies. What is their goal in terms of maximizing the impact of these grants going out to an MCE to work on these programs in terms of taking it even more broadly? Because I'm not talking just, I'm thinking can we make an impact in terms of what we're learning with these programs beyond our own CCA membership?
Oh, sort of sharing our lessons learned beyond this local community, but statewide. Yeah, certainly. I mean, a lot of these grants do come with opportunities to go and present on our findings and lessons learned. Some of our federal grants require us to, share at national conferences. Our Cal CCA conference is a great place to share with other CCAs. We do a lot of coordination internally with programs teams to, like Dawn was saying, we do a program, it works. We will share that solicitation, the contract, everything with another CCA. We'll also share if we try something and it doesn't work and say, tweak it a little bit. So those are some of what's going on now, but certainly welcome suggestions on how to do more of that.
I was curious on the EV charging. We have programs in our city, and it turns out that installing the EV charger is just part of the problem, that keeping it maintained is also a part of the problem. And I was wondering if you guys have lessons learned there that you can share with people that are doing that work.
That right there is a huge lessons learned. Yes. That is one of our top priorities right now in our EV programs, to address that issue, because we know from firsthand experience that it's challenging to own and maintain chargers, and we can't in good faith say to our customers when they share that as a concern with us, when we're out trying to convince them to install EV chargers, and they say, well, we're concerned about our ability to maintain this or the cost associated, and that's a real concern. And so that's actually something that we are prioritizing right now, is looking for a solution. How can we offer this as a service? How can we put more transparency and more pressure? So in our EV charging program, we have a list of vendors that we work with, and that is something that they apply to. We accept them into the program, and then we publish a list of vendors. And so how can we use that to ask for more transparency and more support for our customers after the charger installation is done, as a requirement of being on that approved vendor list? Those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Thank you.
Director Kohler?
Yeah, so I'm wondering, so we know that existing buildings are kind of one of our biggest problems and a big nut to crack. I worked with the Energy Commission some years ago, hoping to get them to require changes in existing buildings, and they're not willing to go there because it's so expensive, and there's a lot of social justice issues associated with that. But one of the things I'm thinking of is through our projects like the virtual power plant, considering developing a protocol for climate action reserve for their voluntary carbon market for offsets. It would not be eligible for cap and trade program. These kinds of things are not. But I'm wondering, that would get our programs out there, and we would have companies buying offsets. So it may give us more leverage and more ability to really influence what's happening in our state. So it's a big lift, and I worked on those programs for CAPCOA for some time. We closed our greenhouse gas exchange, but CAR's out there, and there are other exchanges that might be worthwhile to look into. Is it possible to develop a protocol for offsets? Thank you.
Director Feynman?
Sure. So I think relatedly, I'm super interested in just what the sort of like carbon savings are from various projects.
And I know that one thing that's been talked about in previous meetings has been, how to balance this kind of conservation piece. And I realize this is not just conservation, it's also actually switching from gas to electric. But really on the consumer side versus the, increased supply piece on the utility side. And I think that as much data as you provide to kind of help me or us understand what that looks like. I assume it's much more expensive for, unit of energy saved on the customer side, but there are so many other benefits. So I'm just interested in that. And then the other piece, because, all of us wear other hats as, people on city council boards who have some authority over building codes and permitting processes and all that, is if there's lessons learned from building codes or permitting challenges that you're encountering that could be, perhaps relayed back. And obviously you're working in very specific communities, and so you don't want to, throw anyone under the bus, but I think we all probably have work to do in streamlining so the kind of work that you're doing on the ground can be easier, both for, MCE directly, but also for, the investment for the private sector. We're doing this on a dime. We want to electrify it and make these upgrades. So I'm super interested for any recommendations on building policies and permitting.
Yeah, those are both really good suggestions, and I want to give a quick shout out to our community members who are here today, some of our community stakeholders who have really pushed us to look at some of the greenhouse gas emissions and carbon data for our programs. And you're right, we do programs for a lot of different reasons, and so sometimes you can look at a lot of data and it will tell you different things, and you sort of have to know the objective of your program. Is it an equity program? Is it an energy saving program? Is it focused on carbon emissions? But we do have a lot of data available, and I'm happy to share it. And then permitting, yeah, especially EV chargers and batteries have been identified as areas where we could do more to help with permitting.
Yeah, great presentation. Just a question in terms of grants. All of these programs were grant funded. Have we ever done any programs that were not grant funded? Or do we ever use any of our MCE general funds to bolster a program once it sees success?
Yes, we do. So your board has approved a resiliency fund that in particular, the program that Stephanie was speaking about, that grant from the Marin Community Foundation supported a smaller number of batteries in the larger resiliency program that was funded out of the resiliency fund, where we put money in to the fund from our operational funds. We also have the local programs fund, where the half-a-cent deep green adder from deep green electricity sales goes in. Plus, every year we have the opportunity to potentially put more funding into that to support local programs. That fund supports our electric vehicle programs, and we have a few kind of heat pump water heater programs. In particular, actually, I just want to take the chance to mention that we just launched a emergency replacement water heater program, where we're offering contractors funds to allow them to put in a temporary water heater with the eventual goal of putting in an electric heat pump water heater. So those types of programs are just directly funded from MCE in addition, and often kind of help boost the grant funded programs that we have.
Well, thank you, Alice. We appreciate it. We're going to move on to our next discussion, community partnerships, with Jenna, our manager of communication and community engagement.
All right. I could still say good morning. We're still there, so good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all again. Jenna Tenney, MCE's Manager of Communications and Community Engagement, and I'm joined here with one of my team members, Tyler Brown. Tyler, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Tyler Brown. I'm a Senior Partnerships Manager on the Public Affairs Community Engagement team.
So we're going to be talking today about our community partnerships and really what that means for MCE. You heard from Dawn earlier about how MCE started and the important role that all of you have played in the work that we do. And also we have members of the public here who are part of that work as well, pushing us to provide more data, think more strategically about our programs. So there's a lot of different ways that we really heavily rely on our community partnerships in order to make us really successful as your local electricity provider. Okay. So the public affairs team, we are in large part the public-facing part of MCE. We support our customer programs, all of our outreach efforts, and helping educate our customers and also our board. So you receive a monthly newsletter from us letting you know what's going on with MCE. So as we go through here, I do want to end with some questions, but I also want to remind folks that every month when we share this information with you, that's also a time to provide us with feedback, because we do our best work when we're hearing where we need to be from you all who are experts in your communities. So our priorities are really to tell MCE's story, promote positive behavior change, build equitable communities, and educate our communities on a variety of different topics, right? So that could be benefits of electrification, bill savings, opportunities for specific customers, the available rebates and incentives that we offer to help lower your bills or get access to clean energy technologies, and also emissions reductions opportunities, because that is core to what we're doing here, is helping combat climate change. So our key strategies, I'm not going to cover everything super in depth here, but is really building capacity and trust with local organizations. So that includes our member municipalities, but also our CBOs and businesses that are in the community doing the feet on the street work with community members, right? So helping build those relationships is a big part of what we do, and we do that in a variety of different ways, but really it's about meeting those community members where they're at. So some people may just need basic information on MCE, and other people may be diving deep into electrification and asking, how do I get my permits? How do I get into these programs? What money is available to me? And that's where we're really here to help tailor the work that we do to what is really needed in the community. So our priority is to focus on workforce and economic development, education and youth engagement, older adult and disability justice, public health, transportation and housing, environmental justice, and Spanish-speaking communities. So these are what we consider to be our priority populations. So we go above and beyond to try to reach these groups on a regular basis and maintain those relationships, because we know that they may have historically been left behind in the transition to clean energy, or maybe just have a harder time accessing resources for whatever reason. Spanish speaking is a good example, because if all of your materials are in English, but you're primarily Spanish speaking, that's not accessible to you. So one of the ways that we engage is through our community events and sponsorships. So you can see here a snapshot of where our equity sponsorship dollars are going. So we have, this budget is split. We try to have at least 50% of our community sponsorship budget go toward equity categories, which you can see are defined here in this pie chart. Last year it was 60%. Right now we're tracking toward 46%. We will hit the 50%, that's our priority, but it's great to see that we've been able to do more than that as well. We also this year have attended over 250 events so far. This was a couple weeks ago I put this together, so I'm sure it's probably closer to 280 now. And we always ask ourselves these same questions when we're evaluating our community events and sponsorships. So does this support a priority community that I talked about on our last slide? How many folks are we reaching with this sponsorship? Will this organization be better able to support a target audience or MCE's mission because of the sponsorship? This is organizations who maybe are not directly environmental or energy related, but who are directly benefiting the community. One of the organizations that comes to mind for me is Monument Impact. That's just an example, but we have them across our entire service area where they're doing equity work in the community, and we're able to help them support their customers with bill savings or other MCE programs and things like that. Are we able to share MCE information as part of the sponsorship? And then lastly, does this support an ongoing effort that meets MCE's mission? So when we get requests from our board members, we get requests from community organizations, and it's really helpful to us to hear what community-based organizations and partners we should be prioritizing and focusing on, because we do our best, but we don't always live in the communities that we're supporting. A lot of us do, but you all, again, are the experts, and helping inform us where we need to be is really vital in making sure that we are doing our best work. Okay, and I'm going to hand it over to Tyla for some case studies.
All right, so as a part of the public affairs team, our goal is to make MCE a trusted brand within our communities. And it's easier when we have the seal of approval from community partners. So essentially, in order for us to be a human trusted brand in our communities, we have to do that in partnership with community organizations. So for the past 2 years, our team have been focused on building intentional, ongoing relationships with stakeholders that eventually turn into what we call partnerships. An example of one of those partnerships is the Lime Foundation. Lime Foundation is a Black-owned, woman-led organization that helps support underserved students, underserved job seekers, learn about the construction trades. When we met with them in 2023, we asked a question of ourselves: what does it mean to support this organization beyond just a sponsorship? What happens when we invest our financial resources, when we give education, when we utilize our own network and opportunities and build capacity of this organization? And so what came out of that is we co-created a program where 70% of our Marin job seekers that were a part of this program were Black and Latino, and they reported feeling excited about the opportunity to work in clean and renewable energy. But our long-term impact is more far-reaching. By working on this pilot, we were able to work with Lime to develop a successful grant proposal, and we were awarded $380,000 from the Marin Community Foundation to scale this program. So we're now able to offer this program for more job seekers with enhanced services to make the program more robust and impactful. So a couple of years ago, when I first started at MCE, I was tasked with actually leading a facilitation for a board retreat, a virtual board retreat. So it's funny to be here now. But one of the things that we learned from that board retreat facilitation was that you all want us to focus on youth engagement and education as a way to build our brand with families in our communities. So we've done that work, and one of the things that we've done is lean into education partnerships with youth-based organizations and youth-led organizations throughout our service area. Last year, one of our fellows, our public affairs fellow, led a Because of Youth campaign, which is a social media campaign that highlights youth and youth-based organizations doing amazing sustainability work throughout our service area. It was one of our most successful social media campaigns with over 1,400 impressions. And some of the orgs that are highlighted here, as you can see, they are some partners, what we talk about as partners. They evangelize our work, our services and programs, they invite us to community events, and they believe in the work that we do. But some of them are newer, and this was an avenue, a vehicle for us to start to form these stakeholder relationships into partnerships. So after participating in this campaign, the Solano County Office of Education initiated a meeting with us to see how we can collaborate more this year. So we're now collaborating with them on the Bay Area Academic Decathlon for next year. The theme for that year is Our Changing Climate, so it makes sense for us to be there. And we'll be presenting to 200 young people about climate action and renewable energy at the Napa and Solano County Youth Resiliency Summit. So as I wrap up this section, I want to share some of the local groups that we've been working on building strong partnerships. You can see from this list, it's not exhaustive, but we prioritize groups working in divested communities in various areas. So you'll see groups here that are working in economic development, workforce development, public health, older adult and disability justice. We believe these groups are critical to creating social and safety networks that help communities stay resilient in the face of climate change. This is why we focus on and prioritize those groups. So while we focus on building sustainable, continuous relationships with these groups, we want to make sure that we're not just focused on ad hoc initiatives, but long-term, sustaining goals and opportunities with these groups. And because of that, we have to make sure that we show up. We have to make sure that we're consistent with these groups, and we have to make sure that we're transparent with these groups. So all of these groups that are here, we're doing sustainable, long-standing work with them. So as I wrap up this section of our presentation, I'm curious to hear from the board where you see opportunities to strengthen our engagement and where we should be prioritizing our engagement and outreach. As you ponder on that question, I'll turn it back over to Jenna to discuss our compound and upcoming initiatives.
Thank you, Tyler. So this slide is a little bit cut off. Sorry about that. But you may remember this slide from earlier this year. This is an overview of our Community Power Coalition. You can see here the pie chart is the membership makeup by organization type. So we have a large participation from economic development and our municipal partners as well. We host 6 meetings annually, alternating between informational sessions and listening sessions. So that gives us an opportunity to share out what we're working on at those informational sessions, and then at the listening sessions, ask for feedback directly on specific initiatives. So this is over 150 member organizations, 215 plus individuals representing those organizations. In order to participate in the coalition, you do need to be representing an organization, not just an individual. And this year they provided feedback on our asset ownership, which we discussed at the board, program investments. That's where Alice mentioned earlier, a lot of the conversations around how we're providing data on our programs and really the priorities for those. And then also our nuclear allocation, which you all will probably remember those discussions and the feedback we received from the group there. So this is a way that we continue to work with these organizations and keep them updated, and are always looking for ways to further engage. So that brings us to what's coming soon. We're very excited to have our 2024 Compound Symposium coming up in November. This will be our first event of this type specifically. We have had in-person events with Compound before and all-day events with Compound before, but this is structured a little bit more to give the folks who aren't able to participate with us on a regular cadence an opportunity to hear about all of the things we've been discussing over the last year, things that we've received feedback from them on, and we're now reporting out on what have we done, how have we taken that feedback. So we're very excited to see how that event goes, and we are slowly making our way toward our RSVP goal of 80 organizations hoping to attend. We're up around 40, 50 right now, so we're very excited. And then lastly, I wanted to share our community partnership program. So this is a brand new program that we just launched. The submission deadline for the solicitation actually closed last Friday, and we are offering contracts to local partners, up to 8 organizations, expected to be about $30,000 per organization, but we do have some flexibility just depending on what folks are proposing if we think it's worth investing more in. They are required to educate customers about MCE's programs and services, but may also include a specific focus area in one of these areas as well. So we're really excited to get this moving forward. The contracts are expected to be executed in January of 2025 for 12-month terms. And if this goes really well, it's a program that we hope to continue to run to help bolster the impact that these CBOs have in the community. Our municipal partners were encouraged to apply as well, because we know that we're more effective when we work together. So thank you for going through this with us, and we'd love to hear any feedback about what you think we're doing well or where we could be showing up more effectively in your community. And again, you get emails from us every month, so email us back. We want to hear where we should be.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Do we have any questions, Director Toms?
Thank you for that presentation. When you talk about other partnerships, I have a suggestion, and that is work with the different county Office of Emergency Services and their health departments, because they maintain a list of their citizens that rely on medical devices. So if there's a power outage or weather issues, those would be the people that really do need that kind of assistance.
Thank you.
Director Painter?
Thank you very much. And, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see those monthly newsletters. So I just want to make sure that we're all getting that information. If others are, that's great. Could be that you have a city email and it goes to spam or whatnot, but that's really useful information. And, I feel like we're trying to make progress and make those connections in Napa, but if we don't get the newsletter, it's hard for us to comment back. So maybe if we could just double check that it's where it's going to, or ensure that we're receiving it, that would be terrific.
Absolutely. They do come from board just to make it a little bit easier to find. But I'll have Mariella check in with you and see if we can troubleshoot that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Director Darrell.
I just want to give a big shout out. The MCE partnered with a bunch of other agencies for an electrification fair at Kelly Craft Brewery, and the combination of electricity and beer seemed to work. I got there late in the day, and there were still people going around booth to booth learning about heat pumps and solar and having a beer, and it worked. It was very well attended.
Who would have thought? Well, thank you so much, Jenna. We really appreciate your presentation. And so we're running a little behind, so we're going to skip the break and just keep going. But if any of the directors need to get up and grab some coffee or a snack, please do so. The bus will be here at 1 o'clock, and we still have lunch to try to get in, so we will get it all in. Our next presentation is our last topic for this agenda item. It's Martin Bond, our Senior Business Development Manager.
My name is Martin, and I'm, along with my colleague Chris, part of the business development team. We can't do this alone. We have coordinator Madeline Sarvey from the public affairs team who works with us as well, and an intern from American Canyon in Napa, Allison Benchik, who was also part of our Because of Youth campaign. MCE works with non-residential customers as part of the business development team in a variety of ways. Non-residential customers are commercial, agricultural, industrial, and public sector. MCE coordinates with every department at MCE to offer services and programs from our customer programs team. We offer data analytics and the most up-to-date energy information to help our customers make the right choices. And we meet our customers where they are. Some non-residential customers, we talk with them about bills. We talk a lot about bills. We also, though, talk to them about how they can make a reduction in their energy costs through a reduction in their energy use. So we connect them to energy efficiency programs, strategic energy management. We connect them to demand response programs, as well as, of course, electric vehicle charging, which our customers do love. We act as trusted energy advisors to provide your customers in your communities the most up-to-date information possible to make the right choice on their clean energy journey. And so let's talk a little bit more about who these customers are.
Hi everybody, I'm Chris Kubik. I'm a Senior Business Development Manager in the Public Affairs Department on the Business Development team. I've been here 9.5 years and it's been a great ride. I hope you all stick around as well. So, you know, a lens that we use to focus on particular customer segments is rank. And one rank that we use is top 250. We rank customers by their annual gigawatt hours used. And a pie chart to represent this list is seen at the left. The green represents the commercial and industrial, very broad categories, and public sector is 2 slices on the left. I broke out the member municipalities who are big enough to be in this particular list. Those together actually represent the largest sector of the top 250, the public sector at 35%. So that's notable. Also notable, if you look at the gray slice, is public DC fast chargers appeared for the first time in our service area in 2014, about 4 years after we started, in a single instance, I think in Napa. And now in 2018, they were big enough to make the top 250 list, which includes top 250 customers, of course. And now there are 6% of the top 250. So, and it's continuing to grow upwards. That's notable as well. Just now ahead of ag. That's of course not all of our agricultural customers in the pink slice, but it is just for the top 250. And another thing that's worth noting is, you know, how do these various sectors end up with a propensity to choose MCE? Well, one thing that's very vital, as you can imagine, is if they have a sustainability plan or something like that. Also, if they have a financial plan to work on their energy costs, that's also a big driver as well. But one of the really key things across all sectors is the level that they are local. And they might be owned, for example, by a company out of France, but if they have a sustainability plan that says you need to get scope 2 emissions down to 0 by next year, they're going to call us because we're really the only game in town and we're happy to help them. And a lot of our opportunities have come that way. We try to maintain relationships with every single one of these, and the list does turn over from time to time. We cold call them, we have contacts there, we have warm intros. And one of the ways that we get warm intros is by strategic partnerships that we have in the marketplace. One partnership that I'd really like to give a shout out to is Napa Green, which is a certification organization in Napa for wineries and vineyards, and they actually provide credits for 100% renewable in order to get the certification or the 3-year recertification, or you can get credits for EV charger installations as well. So we receive a very warm intro, maybe an email is the common mechanism, and we can talk to the customer directly, and that works really beautifully. We also launched a campaign a couple of years ago, which we were invited to do by Napa Green, to add a sign to the bottom of the Napa Green certified signs. And if you drive up the St. Helena Highway towards St. Helena, up on the right and on the left, north or south, you see a lot of these, and it's really fun to see. So take a look next time you're up there. Another set of partnerships that are tremendously valuable to us are our chamber partnerships, and we're members of every single chamber in the entire service area, and that is dozens of chambers. So when we win an award, as we did a couple of times this year, we're really humbled and grateful. We did that as a result of Napa, the Novato Chamber voting for us, as well as just recently the Fairfield Sassoon Chamber. Is that right? No, sorry, the San Ramon Chamber. Sorry about that. But we also try really hard to have more and more chambers think about having a sustainability award And then MCE loves being a sponsor of that award. It gives us some visibility, and it also provides the opportunity for more members to envision winning the award themselves. What sustainability actions can they take? And two of those in the last year who initiated these awards are the Napa Chamber. They had their event in January, and the Fairfield Sassoon Chamber had it just a week or two ago. That's right, 2 weeks ago. And lastly, this is a small list of the many, many, many customers on the top 250 list and outside of the top 250 list who have adopted MCE programs and products and have worked with us or worked on their own to really raise the visibility of the actions that they've taken, whether on a blog or in their beautiful newsletters. We have videos, so we're not going to have time to show any of these here. We're going to try to keep this brief, but I highly recommend taking a look at every single one of the links that are on here in your packets. There's a beautiful video of our Chief Customer Officer, Jamie Tuckey, over at Rutherford Hill Winery last year as part of the RISE event that MCE has sponsored one day of for the last couple years, and we're going to see if we'll be sponsoring it again this year. There's also a great video of the Napa Valley College EV chargers that were installed a few years back for a 10-year anniversary. Highly recommend those. And there's some great videos of our strategic energy management program at a couple of entities, including Ramar Food. So please take a look when you get a chance.
How do our non-residential customers participate in MCE programs? Well, at a really high level. So if you think of our non-residential customers as a whole, there's a higher number of counts in deep green than our service area as a whole, 10.5%. There's also, if you again think of how non-residential customers are participating in MCE service, they're at a higher level than all customers who are eligible in our service area. So we're really looking to deeply engage with our non-residential customers, and it's working out. To use the lens that Chris mentioned of our top 250 customers, this is an area that Chris and I spend a lot of time on. We really want to focus on the largest customers in your communities because these are the ones that are using the most energy. They often have the largest workforces and have a big impact in how they participate with MCE. And we've been doing a really good job. So of the top 250 customers who have stayed with MCE, so they didn't opt out originally, 98% have stayed with us year over year since 2019, and we haven't had any of our top 250 customers leave MCE service over the last couple of years. So we have a favor from our board. We would really like you to help us, and there's a variety of ways you can do that. One of the ways is to introduce us, our business development team, to the largest and most important business leaders in your community. We want to talk to them, be a trusted energy advisor, provide them with the resources they need to make the right energy decision. Additionally, as Jenna mentioned earlier, we're out in the community quite a bit. I see Director Brisson all the time. And we love to have you recognize us, talk about your participation with MCE, and how we can support the work that's going on that you want to do in your communities. And lastly, many of you have already participated in helping us collect funding, but continue to support MCE programs, continue to talk about ways the business community can interact with MCE. We do have a new program, Small Business Energy Advantage, that's really focused on the smallest customers, provides a lot of hand-holding, and we'd love to be able to participate with the businesses in your community. And at that, I want to leave it with a question for you. How can you, and what are your ideas around connecting the business community in your cities and counties to MCE? Open up for any questions. Thank you very much, by the way, for paying attention today. Yes? Go.
Yeah, just a question in terms of our city. I represent Mill Valley, And most of our larger businesses are restaurants, and we have a couple of hotels in town. Just thinking about energy efficiency and some of the programs MCE offers. Since we're not in a disadvantaged community, what are kind of some of the offerings that relationship could actually afford them, aside from just moving up to deep green?
We would love to talk to your businesses, restaurants, and small businesses about opportunities to do whatever they can in their small businesses. One particular area that comes to mind is cold storage. So walk-in coolers, refrigerators use a tremendous amount of energy, and there's some great programs that our team offers through partners to be able to go in there and take a look at that, as well as heating, ventilation, air conditioning are some additional opportunities. We offer a particular program for demand response, the Peak Flex program. That can be an additional way to get revenue in if they're able to reduce some energy during that 4 to 9 window in the summers as well. Yes, Mr. Person.
Your title of your topic is non-residential.
Yes.
In my city, we have a massive number, we have 10,000 businesses. We have a massive number of home-based businesses. How does that fit in with the program?
We make a distinction based on their type of energy tariff they have. So if they're on a commercial account versus a residential account. We focus in this presentation on the business development team on commercial accounts. So if they do have a home-based business, we would love to connect them to our residential program. Alice here can talk to that. That's the best fit for those pros. Got it. Yes, sir, Ms. Quito.
Thank you. For most of our towns and cities, it's the car dealerships that bring the most tax revenue. The importance of reaching out to them, and I know you reach out to my car dealership in El Cerrito. Many of the owners in the East Bay are frustrated, having to deal with PG&E, and they're trying to catch up on electrification. So I think that'd be a great idea for MCE to reach out to the different car dealerships in the East Bay, Marin, and Napa counties. Solano. I spoke to an owner of a car dealership who is so frustrating dealing with transmission as well, and that's another thing. So a lot of the dealerships are dealing with playing catch-up, but they want to do it, but it's definitely prohibitively expensive for them when they're not getting any breaks from the city or state.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say thank you very much for the connection to El Cerrito Honda and Sharif. We were able to connect them to another program we have, and they were participating in our EV rebate program, instant rebate program. But yes, agree, 100%. Thank you.
Director Charlotte.
Thank you. Yeah, so last week, many of us were at the Cal Cities conference, and one of the topics was around electrifying our fleets as government, but also thinking about like large corporations. So I guess it's an opportunity for MCE, and Rivian was actually there, was one of the panelists, and which they really want to get involved, with all this. So I wonder what opportunities we have as MCE to form partnerships around that.
Yeah, I mean, for now, we are able to provide, and we do provide, level 2 charger rebates, which are used in some cases, especially for overnight situations, for especially passenger vehicles for fleets, not heavy duty, right? But I think we're still working hard on our fleet plan. I don't know if Alice, you want to refer to that, or give everybody a chance to get to lunch. But we don't have a fleet program right now where we're doing anything more than that, but we have been working very hard on trying to figure that out.
I'll just add in another opportunity for something like Rivian is our managed charging program. So especially like higher end vehicles are not the best fit for our rebate program necessarily, but working with those manufacturers to be able to manage charging is a really good opportunity.
Great, and they did mention Rivian that they are going to have 70 to 80 models coming up in the next 2 years. So looking at police cars, fire, like really our entire fleets for cities. Thank you.
Director Dawson.
I just want to follow up on Director Perry's point and your answer to that in terms of some programs for maybe peak time management, because our biggest businesses are our restaurants and our grocery stores who really can't change that balance because that's when they're busiest basically. So any programs I could talk to savings or energy efficiency would be really important because they're obviously being hit. We're not really at the place yet where we've recovered fully the sales revenue from the pandemic yet. We're getting there. So however we can help them minimize their expenses would be great and would also help us go towards our sustainability goals.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Dawson. We love to connect individually with those specific businesses. We talk to businesses on a regular basis about ways they can reduce their energy use and through that reduce their energy costs.
Director Painter.
Thank you. I just want to quickly also mention that you talked about chambers of commerce, but I'm hoping that you also coordinate with SBDCs, the small business development that is in probably every community. I know our SBDC has a lot of programs for small businesses, particularly around rebates. We did a coordinated effort with them for a leaf blower rebate for our commercial landscapers. So small businesses like that could benefit. And I'm sure they'd be really excited to partner on different programs. So I definitely would encourage you to reach out to them.
That is a great suggestion, and we can definitely do more in that area, and we'll take note of that. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Are there any members of the public that there may be public comment on this item?
Not a member of public staff, Save Parent, Vice President, Customer Operations. I just wanted to add to Director Brisson's question about small businesses that are at-home businesses. So a lot of those businesses are actually under a B1 rate, which is a very small business rate, and they are eligible for our small business energy program that we just launched, and we were actually just doing door knocking in Concord.
I was going to get to him privately.
Yeah, okay. And in addition to that, they're also eligible for our MCE Cares credit program, which provides $25 a month towards that energy cost. So those at-home businesses are also the ones that we want to engage with because we're hoping that they grow their business at their home so that they have a brick and mortar in your community so that you have two customers, we have two customers, and we're making twice the impact.
Thank you very much, Ed. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, we are moving on to item 6. Navigating industry changes and challenges. And we will have 3 presentations under this item. I will turn it over to Don. We'll be doing an overview of California energy market structure.
All right. Vicken and I are going to move us quickly through this presentation. I know we all want to get you out in time for lunch and our exciting afternoon activities. But we wanted to provide you with a very quick overview of the California energy market structure. And so just a quick overview. We want to touch on the multiple key players that are involved in the energy sector. The California Independent System Operator, we often refer to them as CAISO, the load serving entities, which include CCAs like us, and the investor-owned utilities, and also public utilities like SMUD and LADWP. And then, of course, the regulatory bodies like the California Public Utilities Commission and the California Energy Commission in particular. And I think we understand what the roles are of these entities, so I'm going to skip over this slide and show you this really kind of scary looking, confusing slide. But the main thing to take away from this is that there are a lot of load serving entities. The ones showing up with the green font are all CCAs. The ones showing up in blue font are all public utilities, so there's a lot of them. They tend to be smaller. but they're all over the place. And then the ones that are kind of a reddish purple color are the investor-owned utilities. There's just 3 big ones in the state. So it's a little confusing, and it's about to get a little more confusing. Vicken, come on up here and help untangle the knots.
Thank you, Don. Confusing and Vicken next to each other. So we can do deep dives as you see fit, but at a very high level. So for since 1998, and Director Darling reminded us about the DWR comment, but with the creation of the California ISO, the territories that are inside the investor-owned utilities, they have to, all the load that they have to bid into the ISO, and all the generation needs to be bid into ISO, and there's a clearing process to setting market clearing price rates. So in most of the nation, the investor-owned, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission manages these markets, like the ERCOT in Texas, PJM in the East, and what have you. Now, in California, the PUC runs the capacity market, the RA that we talk so much about it. It is not an item that our California ISO manages or deals with it. They take the results of all the RA procurement and they try to use it in the market when there are peak conditions. So, California ISO, energy, PUC, capacity for California. And the rest of the load buys it from the retail service providers, like from municipal, CCAs, or IOUs. Okay, so just to do a really quick overview, there are the fundamental thing to remember about that PUC generally basically has the oversight over the investor-owned utilities. And that's electricity, gas, even like your Verizon, AT&T, things like that. That's what the PUC does. But as far as us, as a load-serving entity, the most important part is that they have authority over our implementation. When I say our, it's the CCAs. Can the CCA exist? By when? With which IOU or IOUs they need to work with. We have at least one CCA that needs to deal with 2 IOUs. And also they regulate or they control the capacity market in California. For the PUC, the capacity market is an existential issue for California, and they rather not give it up. So there were a lot of give and takes between the PUC and ISO. ISO has a lot of modeling capability and capability to see when peaks happen in the system, but still there's a significant division in that. As far as the CEC, you will see shortly in the next meetings or so with the board or the committees that we will bring to you the power content label, our annual power source disclosure program, where we show you where is our resources, where are our emissions, and how we are procuring about all these resources. One of the significant issues that California Energy Commission has is that they do license any power plant that is greater than 49 megawatts. Now, we have talked about ownership in the past with the board and committee Compow about possibilities going into that. We have not directly dealt about that specific item with the Energy Commission, but our third parties that we contract with, they have to. The CARB, well, probably most of us are pretty much aware about CARB. You know, they measure the emissions, and they have market programs about how they capture the burn rate, the toxicity, or the cleanup of as we're getting into California's emission control goals. And they have the clean energy standards. The FERC. The FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, is basically they give the California ISO their license to operate as a balancing authority and as a market participant with their market clearing prices. They do control interstate commerce. They do control, and that is primarily about import and export of electricity and natural gas. We do connect with the FERC quite a bit when we are into interstate commerce negotiations, but one area that we do relate with them is, as we are a significant participant in the California ISO, in their FERC-approved California ISO markets, if there are any issues, if there are any market pricing issues or a scheduling coordinator activities, bidding-related matters that we need as a scheduling coordinator, MCE participates in the ISO every hour of every day, nonstop. We may need to deal with the FERC. Okay, Don, it's back to you.
And I know that we are moving through this quickly, but I do want to encourage you to talk to Vicken if you would like to better understand all the nuances of the energy market. There's so much detail, and we're lucky that he has so much experience working in different parts of the energy sector. So you can grab him at lunch or on the bus tour if you want to ask more questions. Knowing this lay of the land, I want to just spend a moment talking about CCA autonomy and what's happened since CCAs have grown so much in number and scale. First of all, the CPUC, California Public Utilities Commission, has taken a real interest in overseeing more and more things that we used to do all on our own. This started a couple of years in after we began serving customers. They began to set rules about how much time we need to wait before we can begin enrolling new communities. It used to be something we could do relatively quickly once we had power supply procured, but we now have about a year and a half delay to go through some of the requirements that they've put in place for CCAs. They also are in the process of implementing some rules around centralized procurement. And when they authorize centralized procurement of power supply resources, that means that the procurement that we do on our own, that you all authorize as a board, gets sort of usurped by this central procurement, and the charges for anything that is centrally procured for the whole state just get assigned to us. We don't get to choose, in many cases, whether to take that supply or not. So our legal team, our regulatory and legislative team in particular, have been engaged for years and years trying to push back against central procurement and some of the other scope creep measures on this slide. The CEC was a bit more benign initially, and we have a lot of great partnerships with the CEC. As you heard from our grants team, we're bringing in some great grant funds from them. But on a different side of the CEC, there's a new effort underway to control some rate setting processes that all load-serving entities engage in. As you all know, as board members, you establish MCE's rates, and it really isn't the CEC's jurisdiction to oversee rate setting for CCAs. Nonetheless, they have imposed a compliance regime around a specific subset of rates that they'd like to see us put in place. The rates that they would like us to put in place are rates that we'd also like to put in place once the energy markets allow for that and that there's data available. But we're running into a lot of challenges implementing rates due to issues that are outside of our control that the CEC hasn't addressed. So this is a real problem. It's becoming a big time suck for our staff, and it's something we're working very hard on right now to address. The courts also, there's been some recent activity around jurisdictional issues that the court has weighed in on related to expansion plans and RA compliance. I won't get into the details now because we don't have time, but just wanted you all to be aware of that. And then the legislature, there are new legislative efforts that are looking like they might erode some of our autonomy about running programs. Even our non-CPUC jurisdictional programs may be something that the CEC is asked to start reporting on to the legislature. So that's very concerning. because it's our non-CPUC jurisdictional programs that are the most efficiently run. I know that must surprise all of you, but that is an issue for sure. So I'll leave it there, but we certainly have some areas where we're fighting some battles to protect CCA autonomy. And let's go on to the last slide. Just to kind of cap off the challenges that we're facing in the energy sector, supply and demand imbalance, because we have a lot of solar at certain times of the day, increasing supply shortages, as we've mentioned, the electrification and carbon-free goals that have come up a few times today are really pushing us to move quickly on this. And then the increasing regulatory complexity and scope creep issues continue to be challenges. So I'll leave it there so that we can get into how we're addressing some of these risks. And the next presentation is going to get into one opportunity for a bit of positive action on some of this.
Thank you, Dawn. Our next presentation, we'll take all the questions at the end of all the presentations. Our next presentation is from Sabrina, and we'll be discussing Pathways Initiatives.
Good afternoon, I think now. Is it 12? I'm not sure. Almost afternoon. My name is Sabrina Soldovini, Director of Policy, overseeing regulatory efforts at MCE. And Stephanie Chen, Director of Legislative Affairs, and I are going to give you a very brief overview of kind of, as Dawn mentioned, an exciting, I think really exciting opportunity to meet some of the challenges we are facing. And so what that effort is, right, it's an effort to increase energy market expansion, the footprint of energy markets in the West, and also for potential to increase and allow for regional coordinated efforts of transmission planning, hopefully in the future. And so, just to very briefly set the table, in the United States, just going way high level here, there are what's called 3 interconnections. And why this is kind of important is in the West, we have what's called the Western Interconnection. So MCE, California, we are part of the Western Interconnection. And the Western Interconnection is made up of 14 states, and just kind of fun fact, 2 Canadian provinces and northern Baja, Mexico. So technically 3 countries. When I talk about expansion here, though, we only are talking about America. We're not getting into, international affairs here. Though it would be even more exciting for me, maybe not for all of you. And so I will kind of skip some of this, but what's important about this is so there's opportunity for the grid to be connected and markets to go over all of this region. But what's important is that, right now, as Vicken so adequately discussed, we are part of the CAISO, the California Independent System Operator. And the CAISO has 3 main responsibilities: grid operations, so making sure that the energy flows. And they also operate what are the 2 energy markets Vicken alluded to as well. And so we have the Western Energy Imbalance Market, or the Western EIM, and starting soon, we'll have an enhanced day-ahead market. So they oversee really 2 markets that allow a lot of transaction of energy amongst several states right now. But it doesn't include all of the Western Interconnection, all of the states all the Western U.S. states. And so there's a lot of opportunities still for expansion that can yield additional benefits to customers and the grid. All right, and so what are those potential benefits that we could get by expanding the regional energy markets and increasing regional coordination for things like transmission planning? Well, I think you've heard a lot about all the challenges we are facing, why we need better transmission planning, those things, but just to sum it up, a system where we could access multiple states' resources, a larger pool of resources to pull on, could be really beneficial across a shared grid. We could increase grid flexibility by balancing supply and demand across a much larger area, and that would help with things like reliability. We also have the potential, not even just potential, the actual reality to lower costs for customers through pooling of resources. If California can send all of its excess solar to other states and they can buy that energy, that reduces the amount of solar and renewable curtailment significantly. The current CAISO EIM market has estimated that it's saved over $5 billion in energy costs for customers, and the ability to actually reduce solar curtailment even further would provide additional benefits to customers and lower costs. Boost resilience during extreme weather events. Again, the ability for California to import resources from other states on a higher level during extreme weather events would be very beneficial. It also allows us to just more broadly, as I've been mentioning, meet our clean energy and climate goals. One of the other exciting opportunities, I think, is that it also allows for things like distributed energy resources to be aggregated and participate in a larger footprint. So there are additional benefits for distributed energy resources to provide value to customers and the grid. So if there are all these benefits, why haven't we just expanded? Why is CAISO just kind of doing its own thing? And why aren't other states clamoring to go to a regional transmission organization? Well, as with anything, it comes down to politics. That different states have different ideas of what they might want to do. Governance structures have, well, I should back up and say that in California, the CAISO, their governing board is appointed by the California governor. And that governing body currently oversees the Western energy imbalance market and will oversee the EDAM. So there is a worry by the other states, the other entities that are participating in these markets, that California might have an outsized role in determining the rules. So they are, a little less than enthused sometimes to participate in a market that is governed by California in their eyes. Whether or not that is true, I think that is up for debate. But so there was an effort started last year by five different states, California, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, and Arizona, to create what's called the West-Wide Governance Pathways Initiative. And the idea is that they could create and form a new independent regional organization to oversee the West-Wide wholesale electricity markets with these kind of core principles. And again, it's really enabling the largest footprint for benefit of customers. And the most important one, I think, there is independent governance. So that, like I said, there could be a step back on the regional organization so that the governing body of the markets would not be essentially appointed by the California governor. And that would be seen essentially as a show of good faith by California that we are willing to, at least eliminate some perception that California has an outside role in controlling the energy markets and incentivize other states to participate in a market with California. And why that's also important is there's also competition. There's another market called SPP, the Southwest Power Pool, that is trying to develop a regional market in the West, the Western Interconnection. And so there's a risk that if California does not make this show of good faith, that some of the other states will decide to go with the other market. And that is a very real risk. And we really want to ensure that California does not become an island. We want to ensure that California can send our solar to other states, that we don't curtail it, that we are able to access all of the benefits of a West-wide grid. We do have the benefit of being very big, though, and other states do, we provide value to them. We have a lot of resources to provide. So it's not, necessarily dire, but it is becoming, there's a time-sensitive issue here. So the Pathways Initiative, again, really focused on developing a new regional organization to oversee the markets. And the idea is that it's going to happen in 3 steps. Step 1 has already happened, to create increased independence and participation in markets. There's a lot here. I'll just say that essentially step 1 has made its way. It's almost through CAISO. We're very hopeful that we are going to be able to create a new independent governing body for the EIM in the EDAM that will have what's called joint authority versus currently the CAISO Board of Governors has sole authority over the market. So that shift of authority is hopefully being seen as a show of good faith by California to keep other states in the process. Now I'll skip that for now. In step 2, now that we have changed the governance structure in such a way that hopefully will allow us to create a new independent regional organization, is really to create this separate organization that can actually oversee the markets. And really what's important in this is that we want to transfer the authority of the Western EIM and the markets to the regional organization, which would allow, again, incentivize other states to be able to participate moving forward. And what's really important in that as well is we hope, or it is hopefully possible for in the future, that regional organization to also not just manage the markets, but to take on the regional transmission planning possibilities. And that would just allow for even more increased operational efficiencies, planning efficiencies. So hopefully we, at some point, aren't in the same situation with all of the transmission constraints we're facing. Back. And the other thing that I want to mention here too, it's really important. One of the reasons this hasn't happened in the past, some of you all may recall, we've tried before to allow CAISO to become part of a regional transmission organization, but it requires legislation. And so part of this step 2 is to form the governance structure of a new regional organization, but additionally to work through legislation that will enable the CAISO to be part of a regional organization. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Stephanie.
Thanks, Sabrina. So as mentioned, we will need legislation that will allow step 2 that Sabrina talked about to happen. And essentially what that legislation would need to do is change the CAISO's role from the operator of those markets to a participant in those independent markets. Seems a lot more simple than it actually will be. And the analogy that I keep thinking of in this scenario is the how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Previous legislative attempts have tried to eat the whole elephant all at once, and those have not been successful. So we are hopeful that this attempt, which tries to take the bite by bite, will be successful. We do anticipate that legislation will be introduced next year to take that first bite empower step 2 that Sabrina talked about, so allow CAISO to participate in markets. But then future legislation at a later date would need to be enacted in order to move to that full regional transmission organization. Oops. I won't spend too much time reiterating the benefits here because I think Sabrina covered those very well, but I do want to bring us back to the point that Sabrina mentioned early in the presentation, which is what happens if we don't do this. If California is not successful in doing this, all of the other states and entities that we really want to trade with, and we as California in this scenario, that California wants to trade with, may join that other market. They may join that competitive market, which wouldn't mean that California wouldn't be able to trade with those states and with developers in those states, but it would be more expensive to do, it would be harder to do, and we would be lower priority for them than the participants that are in their market. We don't want to throw a party and have nobody attend. So I think that's really what's at stake here. It's not just a conversation about the status quo, it's about what the future is going to look like. So I think one of the questions that we have for you all, and we would love your feedback on, is how can MCE better communicate the benefits of regional coordination to our member communities? We know that this is a topic that folks are very interested in, and we believe that it is part of the solution to climate change, and want to know what you all think about how to communicate this. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our last item, and that's energy affordability. And we will be getting an update from Jamie, Chief Customer Officer.
Thank you so much. So this is our last presentation of the morning, and I will move through it quickly because we've presented the materials before, and I'm sure everyone is hungry. But I will say that energy affordability is one of the most difficult and largest challenges facing our industry today. And I'm guessing it's no surprise to any of you in the room here to know that Californians pay more for electricity than other states. But did you know that on average, Californians pay 80% more than the national average? And what's worse is that, sorry about that. Ooh, that's better. So what's worse is that an estimated 30% of Californians struggle with their energy bill, their energy burden, every month, so much so that they're having to make really difficult decisions between paying for essentials like housing, food, transportation, or keeping their lights on. Why are electricity rates so high? The majority of what we pay for our electricity goes for the delivery of that energy, and that's covered by PG&E. This year alone, PG&E increased their transmission and distribution rates by an average of 25%. And those rates are increasing mostly due to climate drivers and infrastructure grid upgrades. They're paying for things like wildfire prevention, undergrounding power lines, tree trimming, that's costing tens of billions of dollars. Modernizing our grid. Our grid is going through a complete transformation so that it can handle all of the renewables that we need to electrify and be a modern grid that can provide the energy that we need. And not to mention profits. So PG&E makes their profits on the delivery side. Last year they made a healthy $2.25 billion. Things are looking good for them again this year. MCE, on the other hand, charges for electric generation, and that's the source of power that our customers are using. And we've been able to maintain really stable rates for our customers. We typically change our rates once a year or less. In fact, the last time that we changed our rates was almost 2 years ago when the board approved an 8% increase to generation costs. Now, even though we've been able to keep our rates really stable, we all know through our discussions that generation costs are increasing as well. And they're increasing from a number of factors: inflation, increased clean energy demand and competition, solar storage needs, issues with transmission capacity, getting those renewables onto the grid and avoiding those costly curtailments, increased resource adequacy costs, and increased competition from neighboring states. MCE is really creative and has been very successful in terms of keeping rates competitive and affordable for our customers. And we do that through a number of ways. We have green bonds, so we're prepaying for electricity, and it's estimated to save us $55 million a year. We've got a really strong credit and financial health, and we rely on that to get competitive rates for our electricity over long-term contracts. We also offer a variety of customer programs that benefit not only our customers and save money for them, but also save money for MCE, which is a win-win. So we offer, we've talked about these energy efficiency programs, demand response programs, load shifting, so customers are using less energy during those peak 4 to 9 periods, energy storage, our amazing VPP, and we're doing a lot to educate our customers to make sure that they know about this and they can participate. To date, we've saved our customers almost $100 million through these programs. So that's bill savings, MCE costs compared to PG&E, bill discounts for our low-income customers, and also debt elimination for those low-income customers. And I want to take a moment and talk about the cost comparison or bill savings. So for the majority of time since MCE has been providing service, we have been less expensive, more affordable compared to PG&E. However, PG&E tends to change their rates 2 to 3 times a year. We keep ours stable. We don't chase those rates. This summer, PG&E did an increase to their delivery fees and a small decrease to their generation fees. That made MCE a little bit more expensive. So right now, MCE is about $5 more expensive for a typical home. That's about 2 or 2.5% more expensive on average. And PG&E is going to be changing their rates again on January 1. Whoops, excuse me. So we'll talk a little bit about the future. And I don't have a crystal ball, but the outlook is really challenging. We're going to continue to see expensive costs for mitigating climate, infrastructure upgrades, and that will continue to drive up costs and rates. I just found out this morning that PG&E's most recent data for their proposed rate change in January is looking at an increase in generation costs of up to 20%, maybe a little bit more than that. And that's not for sure. There's a lot of work and data that goes into calculating these numbers, but it's indicative of continuing rising rates. MCE is going to be continuing to focus on our core values of providing stable and competitive rates through all the things we've talked about, relying on our strong financial health, continuing with bond issuance, long-term PPAs. We've talked about owning our own renewable energy assets and also continuing to develop these customer programs. But just what MCE is doing is not the only part of the solution. There's also a bigger statewide policy focus, and so I want to hand it over to Stephanie to talk for a legislative perspective.
Thank you, Jamie. Affordability has been a priority for the California State Legislature for a couple of years now, and we anticipate that that will continue as bills do continue to increase. And legislators are really looking for solutions of all types, short-term, long-term, big ones, small ones. They're looking for all of the options. And unfortunately, what this has meant is that some of the options they're considering would jeopardize energy efficiency and other customer programs. And I won't spend too much time on the irony of pulling back on energy efficiency in the name of affordability. But these programs really do, as you've heard, help customers save money in the long run, both system-wide and individually. So we're doing a lot of work to educate legislators about the nuances there. As I think Jamie mentioned, the primary cost drivers for why bills are so dang high right now are really on the poles and wires side of things. And legislators are looking for solutions there as well. All of the need that we will have over the next couple of decades to build out our grid to reach our climate action goals, as well as to make the grid wildfire safe, are going to be really expensive. And the state really is going to need to look for different sources of funding so that ratepayers aren't on the hook for all of those expenses. This too has been going on for a couple of years, and we anticipate that those explorations will continue next session as well. The state budget outlook does remain challenging, however. It does look like the climate bond is polling well. There's a little bit of funding in there that might start to address some of these issues, but there's still going to be a more significant gap there as well. So the CCA community statewide is really looking at some ways that we, from our position of expertise, that is not our part of the grid. We don't control the poles and wires, but we do have a lot of insight into how the system works. And so we are looking to become part of that conversation about what kind of affordability solutions and funding solutions are out there to meet our grid needs. We will, of course, continue to keep you all posted as this conversation gets underway next session, because communities and the experiences that you and your constituents are having are going to be really important in keeping legislators focused on the big cost drivers and protecting the programs that are really making a big difference on the ground in the communities that we all serve. So I think the question that we have for you on this topic is how can MCE further assist low-income households and other folks who are struggling to keep up with their bills given rising energy costs? We are definitely open to solutions and want to be creative and community-oriented in this regard. And with that, Jamie, are we done?
That is done. We can hand it back to our chair.
Great, thanks.
All right. I know we breezed through these 3 items pretty quickly and just want to check in with the directors to see if there's any questions or comments. Yes.
I have a question for Stephanie about the new governance. Yeah. So is it fair to draw a comparison to Texas and ERCOT for this? And sort of why or why not? And if yes, then wouldn't we rely on some of that information and data to date to illustrate why this is useful?
Yes, I think Sabrina is probably going to be our subject matter expert on that one.
The first part, compare just like the benefits of just regional coordination in general?
No. Compared to ERCOT in Texas?
Yeah, it's vastly different. I think when we talk about, again, as Stephanie mentioned, we're part of the Western interconnection, so there's not really a risk of actually becoming islanded in that sense. But I think in ERCOT you do see what happens potentially when there is an island, when they are actually island, and they're very, Vic might know better than I, but they are very, very limitedly connected to the other interconnections. So when things go wrong, they go very wrong. They don't have the ability to rely on other states to pool resources, and that's what happened in winter of, was it 2020, I think it was, when prices went to $10,000. Of course, ERCOT operates very differently than CAISO does. Their market, they have essentially no market cap. though it's about $10,000 per megawatt, and that's what happened. CAISO, it's closer to 2,000, so there's a difference there. But yeah, it's an apt comparison that the benefits of regional coordination can help us avoid situations like we saw in Texas in 2020.
Thank you. Director Zorn.
I just had a question for Don. At the very beginning of your presentation, you said the CPUC is requiring a 1.5-year delay before you can sell. I heard you say that we have to purchase power and sit on it for a year and a half before we can then make our money back. Is that what that means?
Yeah, and they've tied it to a resource adequacy obligation. There is a year ahead resource adequacy obligation that lands on December 31st of every year for the year ahead. And the timeline that the CPUC adopted it was about 7 years ago, requires that a CCA can't begin serving customers until for essentially a year and a half after they've filed their implementation plan, so that they can file their RA compliance obligation for the full year before they begin serving customers. So it is that is what it's tied to, but essentially it does mean about a year and a half of waiting, and that's why we aren't serving Hercules just yet. You know, they joined a while ago, but we'll be needing to wait until next spring to serve them.
Thank you. I think I just want to follow up on that. The question on the screen says, how do we assist low-income households? But there are plenty of non-disadvantaged communities who are also concerned about the cost of power. And so trying to identify what ways can we keep rates low, or at least not massively increasing over time wherever we can for both low-income and just middle-income households.
Director Feynman.
Thank you, Chair. I had a comment and question for the regionalization item. I know in the past there's been concern from Sierra Club, with questions around regionalization, and I think most of the concern, at least as I remember reading it, was like we just don't know what this looks like, and we're concerned about regionalizing a grid where, some states in there have very different relationships to science than we do at a policy level. So my, question is, what, and especially as kind of it's a step-by-step process, what does that look like on the California side, and really from the CCA side, to make sure that we're going in positioned to continue to be really strong in renewable energy procurement and sale of energy. And then I think in terms of the question on the slide, which was, how can MCE help communicate the benefits? I think for me, what I would love to know is what is the sort of what are the policy points from MCE and CalCCA for how this would have to look to make sure that some of those concerns are adequately addressed in the policy. And I think any information that you all can provide to the board to say this is our vision of what this could look like and why it would be so beneficial would be really helpful. And my hope is that as go CCAs, so goes the state, as goes the state, so goes the regional grid, and all that kind of stuff. But
That's such an important point, and I'm really glad you brought it up. And it's the reason why it's on the agenda for today, is that there has been a lack of information, I think, flowing among some of the advocacy groups, particularly the Sierra Club. And your board, as per usual, is on the cutting edge and is well informed. I think some of the CCA boards don't understand the real benefits of regionalization, and are concerned about just what you said, that why would we want to interact with other states that might not have the same priorities? And I think the clearest answer that I can think of is that the state's policy objectives are not going to change if we start doing more business with other states. The other thing that I think folks broadly may not understand is that we're already doing business with all these other states. Sabrina kept referring to the EIM. That's an energy market that already exists. The day ahead market is happening across states. But making that market happen in real time will just unlock more affordability. But currently we're not able to access as much of the market as we could otherwise. So I think the arguments around, we're going to end up with more affordable clean energy is the main argument. But we'd love to hear from all of you, what sort of concerns are you hearing? What are some arguments that you think would work well? We can certainly provide talking points that we've developed over the last few years on this issue, and we'll do that. But would love to hear any other questions or concerns that you think we should be better addressing on that front. Yeah.
So, I just want to add a couple of things on the operations side. So, like Sabrina or Stephanie mentioned, there is this other entity on the further east of California that are trying to surround California with their own market design and absorb the Northwest and the Southwest into them. Because there is, in a lot of those states that do not use science maybe or believe in climate change, they do not want to be Californicated either, right? But they don't want to profit from California. So operationally, the Pacific Northwest, Oregon and Washington are almost our mirror image in greenness or driving towards greenhouse gas-free future. So they started withholding for themselves significant amount of green resources like hydroelectric power for their own compliance. The ones that, I'm using your words, that don't believe in science, that are further east, they have a ton of resources that California relies on to keep the lights on every summer for the past 30 years. It's about 13 to 15,000 megawatts of reliable imports that comes to California at a high price to keep the lights on. And because we just don't have enough to serve our summer load. Now in return, we have a ton of surplus when the sun is up and we have a lot of green resources, but we still do not have the load. We briefed the board about how much we're getting curtailed at some of our resources. So under the, like what Don mentioned, the energy imbalance market, EIM, California is able to export it in within the hour, unplanned generation to the neighboring states to provide them with green resources, and they're getting paid for it. Now, to do these transactions, California ISO does not charge transmission anymore. They put the price of transmission zero, which is the single highest, most expensive commodity within the ISO. It's very expensive, like Jamie just did an eloquent job of explaining why things are so expensive. So transmission expensive, energy expensive. So if we cannot attract energy in this Western market from cheaper resources and be able to export our surpluses in the Western market, and this other group comes in, we will be like third fiddle. We will not have a priority. California will not clear the market to set the predetermined amount of energy purchases and sales. So it will become a reliability issue. So anyway, I'm sorry for talking too much, but just want to add something.
Director Murphy, did you have anything? Oh, Director Kohler?
We're sitting close to each other. I guess we're the same. We look the same. Right. I just want to say, Dawn, I think you brought it home when you talked about California's policies will not change. One of our advocates in Marin who helped create MCE has been very much against regionalization, and I think we need to point out in lay terms, some of the terms that we use are too technical, so we need to get our customers behind this. Number one, California's policies won't change. We're not going to start buying coal. How are we, because we'll be able to sell our surplus, that also gives us a real advantage in the market to keep our rates stable, to be able to prioritize and get in ahead and get that renewable energy. We need to get the message out in more lay people terms so that we get our customers behind this, not just those of us who sit here who maybe, I know I don't understand all the technical terms, but I think, you know, you said it right, and I think we really need to start talking that way. I know EIM means a lot to some people, but it doesn't mean anything to a lot of people. So I look forward to this, and I know the last time we tried to get involved in regionalization, this was one of our big areas where I worked with this community advocate, and she still wasn't on board, and she can be someone who can help us sell this. Thank you.
Thank you, great point. And we can reach out to her directly and she might help us think of new ways to communicate. So thank you.
Do we happen to have any public comment?
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Director Salazar.
Salter. I was just wondering, on the regionalization, we're obviously, the CCAs are a big part, but the ISOs would want this too, is that correct?
The IOUs are supportive, yes. I think that the where there's a bit of a rub is the union that work for the IOUs. They really want to keep jobs in California. So in the past, they have been the strongest proponent that has killed legislation in the past. Right now, the Pathways Initiative has one of the primary leaders of that entity on the committee. So we're hopeful that will allow it to move forward this time. But that's where there have been issues in the past.
And have we looked at a ballot initiative? Because obviously there's enough. There would be, if you have the IOUs, all the CCAs, there would be enough money to do that.
We have not looked at running a ballot initiative, no. And as I was mentioning before, all the CCAs are not aligned necessarily at this point in time. I think that because the state is willing to take a leadership role through the legislation, that's probably going to be more cost effective and probably likely to be have a greater chance of success than a ballot initiative, which would probably be pretty hard to explain. I think it really comes down to who would be the opponents on either side. So we're hopeful that a legislative push in the next year will be quicker to the finish line than a ballot initiative, but that's certainly something to consider.
And is there legislation right now written, and are there sponsors? Like, where are we with that?
We are anticipating that legislation will emerge in the 2025 session. Whether there's somebody, with pen to paper right now, I think is still a bit early, but we do anticipate that that's going to happen next session.
And sorry, are there sponsors for?
That's a good question. I am not sure who is going to be sponsoring that at this point, but we do anticipate that the folks who have been very active in the Pathways Initiative, including the union representation that Dawn mentioned earlier, are probably going to be leaders in that advocacy effort as well.
Sorry, on the legislative side, in the Assembly and the Senate, like, are there authors? Yes.
Oh, authors.
Sorry.
No authors have been identified yet, to the best of my knowledge.
That doesn't mean it's not happening behind the scenes. So.
Exactly.
All right. I want to try to move us along quickly. We have a bus that's... Yeah. Nope. I know. Public comment. Just want to make sure I got all the directors and trying to move us along quickly. We have a bus that's arriving at 1 o'clock, and we plan to take off at 1:15, and we still have lunch. So we're going to, if there's not any more directors, just making sure I'm not missing anyone. Okay. We'll move on to public comment.
Leslie Alden, worked with the county board for many years and know many of you. These annual board meetings.
Want to use my mic here?
Nah, you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
these annual board retreats are always so interesting. We learn so much together. It's wonderful to see all these familiar faces and new faces. I'm talking fast with my New York voice. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder. Directors Rice and Joya are both on the Air District Board. And early in this, and you as well, early in this morning, the heat pump water heater proposals were brought up. And I just want to bring to everyone's attention, everyone here, especially those of you who have interaction with your communities, Tuesday evening this week, the Air District did a learning session webinar around 6 p.m. It was recorded, it's on their website, that really frames the whole conversation and some of the conflicts or problems with implementation. So I encourage you to really bone up a little bit on what is coming with the new rules. The board is going to be voting on the staff report on December 4th. That's a daytime meeting. If you can tune in or even show up, it starts at 9:30 or 10. But that's going to be really, really important. The Air District, please, you guys know way more than I do. If John or Katie want to say something about this. This is a huge piece. I think the Air District has led the way, Bay Area. The rest of the state is looking at what the Bay Area Air District has proposed. There's going to be, it's expected that there will be a lot of opposition to switching out, starting in 2027, the replacement on burnout of electric heat pump, gas water heaters for electric heat pumps. In 2029, furnaces that will mostly affect the residential world, that rule 9.4 is expected to take effect. So this is a community education opportunity for all of us to really start to have those conversations and explain the what and the why, and the staff and outside organizations like mine and many others have really worked with the Air District and with the communities to have those conversations about what the impediments are. So we're not done with that. The board will discuss it on December 4th again. It won't take effect until 2027. So that is a big chunk of time to really do that outreach. But you know, we all in the political world look around the room and count votes and noses and all of that. So we really need everyone coming in behind the board as they are brave to make this pretty big decision. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I am going to close out this item and we're going to move on. I'm going to turn it over to Justine, our VP of Internal Operations.
Hi everyone, I'm Justine Parmley, VP of Internal Operations, and I will be your tour guide today. For logistics, we are going to take a quick group photo, so everyone who is not in the board, please stay seated. We're going to ask the board to stand up and stand in front of the table where Chair Scales Preston is currently seated, and we'll face Alex for a photo. After that photo, staff, you're not free, sorry, you're also joining the photo. We're taking a second photo with staff. This should take about 5 minutes to get through these. And then for lunch, if you can go out the exit door this way and come in for the line, that'll be the quickest way for us to go. Please let the board go first, and any members who plan on attending the tour from the public and staff go second, just to make sure everyone has a chance to grab a plate. We do have an electric school bus that serves the children of Pittsburgh arriving at 1. It doesn't have to leave till 1:15, so you do get a few more bites in. But if you're heading out on the tours, we do ask that you are on the bus no later than 1:15. That bus is actually going on the school route today at 3, so we will be back at 3 p.m. sharp to make sure those kids can get to school. And we will be visiting the Pittsburgh Unified School District, seeing a lot of cool projects there. We'll be hearing from Matthew Velasco, the Director of Maintenance and Operations. He's a really inspirational person, really shows how one person can get a lot done when they're really motivated. And then we will also be visiting the Diablo Energy Storage site, and we'll be hearing from Rick Spurlock of Rev Renewables as we visit that site. All of these sites are local to Pittsburgh. They are a short drive away. You are welcome to drive yourself if you do have to go somewhere in between, but we do encourage you to take the bus. It is the quickest way, and there is limited parking. All right, and if you haven't signed the waiver, it's on that front table there. Let's go line up for photos.
And while you're lining up for photos, we hope you'll take an opportunity at lunch and on the tour to chat with each other, maybe meet a board member you haven't met before. This is a great opportunity to network with each other.